Ancient whispers and the call of the stars. Where did we come from? From the first steps of mankind on this planet, our ancestors have always turned their eyes to the heavens. They saw there not just twinkling lights, but the abode of the gods, the source of miracles and the center of an immense mystery. In every culture, from the most primitive tribes to the greatest empires, myths and legends tell of powerful beings who descended from the heavens, gave knowledge, shaped civilizations, and even created man himself. These stories, often dismissed by modern science as fantasies of the primitive mind, may be not just fiction, but deeply encoded memories of real events that occurred in the distant past of the Earth. In our fast-paced 21st century, when space is getting closer and scientific discoveries are increasingly calling into question established dogmas, the idea of non-human interference in the history of the Earth ceases to be the fate of marginals and becomes increasingly relevant. What if we are not alone in the universe, and never have been? What if intelligent beings from other worlds or dimensions did not just visit our planet, but lived among us, interacting with humanity, directing its development, and perhaps even being our creators or genetic modifiers? This extensive study takes you on an exciting journey through the millennia to rethink those aspects of our history that official science prefers to ignore or explain with great difficulty. We will dive into the world of anomalous archaeological finds, unexplained technological achievements of antiquity, mysterious knowledge encoded in myths and texts, and mysterious phenomena that stubbornly resist rational explanation. Our task is not to prove the existence of extraterrestrials in the traditional sense, but to present a comprehensive hypothesis that a significant part of human progress, and even our own existence, can be directly related to the activities of non-human intelligence. We will not just look at individual miracles, but try to weave them into a single, logically connected picture that opens up a completely new perspective on our past, present, and possible future. Traditional history claims that humanity has gone through a long and gradual path of evolution, from primitive ape-like ancestors to complex civilizations, developing step by step, making discoveries through trial and error. However, this linear model faces insurmountable contradictions. How do we explain the sudden emergence of the most complex astronomical knowledge among peoples who did not have telescopes? How were megalithic structures constructed from multi-ton blocks that were moved and processed with impossible precision? Where did the texts describing aircraft and weapons resembling nuclear weapons come from? Why are the myths of all continents separated by oceans so strikingly similar in their descriptions of the gods who came from heaven? These questions haunt many researchers who go beyond academic dogmas. It is precisely these irrelevant facts that are the cornerstone of our hypothesis. We will look for answers not only in ancient ruins and dusty manuscripts, but also in modern science, genetics, quantum physics, astronomy, which are beginning to open doors to worlds previously considered exclusively science fiction. Perhaps right now, when humanity has reached a certain level of technological and conscious development, we are beginning to see what our ancestors saw literally, but could not fully understand or explain. Perhaps we are on the verge of a grand discovery that will force us to rewrite all the history textbooks and rethink the very concept of human. This research is not just a collection of disparate facts. This is an attempt to build a new paradigm in which the alien presence is not a marginal conspiracy theory, but a fundamental, if hidden, element of our shared history. It invites the reader to think critically, to be open to new ideas, and to be willing to abandon outdated concepts for a more complete and exciting truth. We're not just looking for evidence of aliens, we're looking for ourselves, trying to figure out where we came from and what our true purpose is in this vast cosmos. Megalithic mysteries and impossible architecture, evidence from ancient builders or extraterrestrial engineers. The history of human civilization, as it is usually presented, is a gradual development from primitive stone tools to complex technologies, starting with the first cities of Mesopotamia and Egypt, and then Greece and Rome. However, there are colossal structures scattered all over the globe that do not fit into this harmonious chronology. Megalithic structures, from Egyptian pyramids and temples to Andean citadels, from European dolmens and cromlechs to Asian pagodas and stone giants, are stunning in their scale. precision of stone processing and logistics of construction, which would seem absolutely impossible for the supposed level of technology of ancient civilizations. These grandiose monuments of antiquity, like silent witnesses of eras long past, persistently whisper that their creators possessed knowledge and tools that far surpassed anything we attribute to their contemporaries. And this suggests the direct or indirect intervention of alien civilizations that lived among us or led our ancestors. Consider the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. Their size is amazing. The Great Pyramid of Cheops consists of millions of stone blocks, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons, and some of them reach 80 tons. The blocks are fitted to each other with incredible precision, so that it is impossible to put a razor blade between them. How could the builders, without iron tools, wheels, or advanced machinery, carve, transport, and lift these giant stones to such a height? Traditional explanations, such as the use of sloping ramps and millions of slaves, face serious mathematical and physical problems that still do not have a convincing solution. It takes an incredible amount of time, materials, and labor that feels unrealistic. Moreover, the pyramids are oriented to the cardinal directions with amazing accuracy, as well as aligned to certain astronomical phenomena. Such accuracy requires not only the most profound knowledge in geodesy and astronomy, but also technologies that allow you to make measurements on a continental scale. This knowledge and these capabilities certainly could not have been the result of primitive development, but rather the legacy or direct help of extraterrestrial engineers who had a deep understanding of planetary geometry and celestial mechanics. They may have used anti-gravity devices, energy cutters, or stone heat treatment techniques that we're just beginning to understand. Fast forward to the Andes, South America. Fortifications such as Sacsayhuaman near Cusco, Peru, and the ruins of Tiahuanaco in Bolivia are even more fascinating mysteries. The walls of Sacsayhuaman consist of massive polyhedral blocks, some of which weigh more than 100 tons, so perfectly fitted to each other that even paper cannot be pushed between them, and their shapes are irregular, which excludes standardized production. In Tiahuanaco, they found traces of incredibly precise cutting of granite and diorite, some of the hardest rocks on Earth, with depressions, grooves, and holes that engineers believe could only have been made using high-speed diamond or laser tools. These civilizations, according to the official version, did not know the wheel and did not use metals for construction. Who then created these perfectly cut and fitted stones? The hypothesis of non-human intervention offers the answer. Alien civilizations that lived among the Incas or their predecessors may have possessed the necessary technologies that allowed them to process stone as easily as we process wood. These structures could serve not only as fortresses, but also as astronomical observatories, power stations, or even landing pads for their ships. Even more mysterious is Baalbek in Lebanon. At its base are three monoliths known as trilithons, each weighing about 800 tons. Next to them is the stone of a pregnant woman, weighing about 1,000 tons, which still lies in the quarry. It seems absolutely impossible to move such giant stones without modern technology. At the same time, the blocks are perfectly fitted to each other, creating a solid foundation that has withstood millennia of earthquakes. Who possessed such power and technology? There is an assumption that Baalbek could have been built before the global flood and be part of some kind of global infrastructure created by a highly developed civilization. And if this civilization was alien, then their technology for moving and processing such masses was commonplace for them. These and many other megalithic sites, from the underwater Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan, with its apparently artificial steps and terraces, to the astounding Easter Island megaliths, with their unsolved methods of transportation and installation, constantly call into question the capabilities of ancient man. If their creators were human, then they had knowledge in geometry, mathematics, engineering, and materials science that, according to our ideas, should have been achieved only millennia later. This leads to the conclusion that either humanity had a golden age of advanced technologies, which was completely erased from history, or more likely, this knowledge and technology were introduced from outside. The theory that extraterrestrials lived among us and helped build these structures is not fanciful when viewed in the context of ancient myths. The gods who descended from heaven are often described as those who taught people how to build, measure, and work stones. These stories, which are usually considered myths, could have been literal records of technological assistance from alien civilizations. Perhaps the aliens used these objects not only as a demonstration of their power, but also as functional structures, power stations, observatories, communication centers, or even landing pads for their ships. Their architectural decisions could be dictated not only by aesthetics, but also by functionality based on their advanced physical principles. Thus, megalithic riddles are some of the most convincing, silent evidence that the ancient history of the Earth was much more complex and mysterious than is commonly believed. They are an irrefutable challenge to our ideas about the capabilities of ancient humans, and strongly point to the presence of extraterrestrial engineers who may have lived among us and left these grandiose business cards that still stand today, reminding us of their non-human origins. Ancient aviators and space chariots, flying vehicles in myths and artifacts. After exploring monumental ground structures that hint at advanced engineering capabilities, we inevitably come across an even more startling category of evidence: ancient references to flying machines and space travel. For thousands of years, the myths and sacred texts of various cultures around the world contain strikingly detailed descriptions of objects that, by all indications, are nothing more than airplanes, rockets, or even spaceships. These celestial chariots, or vimanas, driven by gods or powerful beings, not only challenge our understanding of the technological development of ancient civilizations, but are also one of the clearest indications that extraterrestrial beings not only visited Earth, but also actively used their flying vehicles, possibly living in the middle of the Earth. People and showing them unprecedented miracles. The most striking example is the Indian Vimanas. Ancient Sanskrit texts such as the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and especially the Vaimanika Sastra contain incredibly detailed descriptions of aircraft of various shapes and sizes that can fly in the atmosphere and even in space. These texts describe not only the appearance of vimanas, their shape, materials, often mentioned alloys resembling modern duralumin, but also the principles of their movement, the use of mercury gyroscopes, anti-gravity fields, solar energy, as well as the weapons they could carry. Descriptions of maneuvers, speed, the ability to become invisible, and even travel underwater make you wonder, could the ancient authors describe in such detail and accurately something that they have never seen, or did they really witness the flights of such vehicles? If these descriptions are based on reality, then who owned these technologies thousands of years before the Wright brothers appeared? The only logical explanation is that alien civilizations possess such advanced technology and may have used India as one of their centers of activity, educating or impressing the locals. Similar references are found in other cultures. In ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs in the Temple of Abydos, especially on the ceiling panels, some researchers see images that resemble helicopters, submarines, planes, and even tanks. Although official Egyptology explains this by superimposing images or redrawing hieroglyphs, the striking similarity to modern machines raises questions. If these images are not random, then they indicate that the ancient Egyptians saw such devices. How could they have seen them if not from the aliens who used these machines to move around the Earth? Perhaps these gods descended from the sky on such devices, which were captured on the rocks. Biblically, there are also descriptions in the Bible that can be interpreted as encounters with flying machines. For example, the book of Ezekiel describes a wheel within a wheel, moving through the air, with a living spirit inside, emitting light and noise. This description, with its technical details and movement elements, is strikingly reminiscent of a modern aircraft or even a space module. For a person who lived in the ancient world and did not have the concept of an airplane or a spaceship, such a phenomenon would be unimaginable, and he could describe it in terms that were accessible to him, turning a technical miracle into a divine revelation. This indicates that the gods referred to in the Bible may not have been abstract entities, but physical beings using advanced technology. Archaeological findings also add fuel to the fire of this hypothesis. Gold artifacts found in South America, for example in Colombia, which according to the official version are stylized images of birds or fish, strikingly resemble in their aerodynamic shape modern aircraft or space shuttles with wings, stabilizers, and even elements similar to the chassis. Some of them were tested in wind tunnels and showed excellent flight characteristics. How could the ancient masters, who had no knowledge of aerodynamics, have created such accurate models? Perhaps they copied the vehicles that they saw in the sky, belonging to alien aviators. This also includes the model airplane from Egypt, a clay figurine found in a tomb dating from about 200 BC, which has a shape very similar to a glider or airplane, with wings and tail. Although official science explains this as an image of a bird, its specific shape is not typical for birds, but is characteristic of an aircraft. This is further evidence that ancient people were able to observe objects that we would today call airplanes. The hypothesis that extraterrestrials lived among us and actively used their flying machines explains these anomalies much more convincingly than attempts to attribute to ancient people sudden and inexplicable breakthroughs in aerodynamics in materials science, which were then completely lost. Perhaps these vehicles were used to explore the planet, transport resources, communicate between different points of presence of extraterrestrials, or even to demonstrate their power and technological superiority over developing humanity. Their presence may have been so common to certain ancient cultures that it entered their daily lives in mythology as part of a divine or magical reality. Thus, ancient myths and artifacts describing and depicting flying machines are powerful evidence that alien civilizations not only existed, but also actively interacted with humanity, possibly living among us at certain periods of history. These space chariots were not only a tool for their movement, but also a symbol of their power and knowledge, leaving an indelible mark on the collective memory of mankind. Ancient energy sources and obscure technology secrets of lost knowledge or alien heritage. After reviewing the evidence of incredible building capabilities and the presence of flying machines in ancient times, the next logical step in our investigation of the hypothesis of an alien presence among us is to analyze energy sources and technologies that seem to be significantly ahead of their time. If extraterrestrials actually lived on Earth or actively interfered with its development, they would certainly have access to advanced forms of energy and devices that could be used not only for their own needs, but could also be transmitted or demonstrated to humanity. These mysterious technologies, found in archaeological sites or described in myths, are a direct indication of lost knowledge or, more likely, an inhuman legacy left in our history. One of the most intriguing examples, which is causing heated debate among researchers, is the so-called Baghdad battery. Discovered in Iraq in the 1930s, this clay amphora, dating from around 250 BC, contains a copper cylinder containing an iron rod. When filled with an acidic solution, such as grape juice or vinegar, this device is capable of generating a small electric current. If it really was a functional battery, then its existence is thousands of years ahead of the official discovery of electricity by Alessandro Volta. The question that arises is not so much whether the ancient Parthians could have accidentally created such an element, but rather what it was used for. For primitive lighting? For galvanizing metals? Or was it a fragment of a much more complex electrical system that they had obtained or copied from someone with a deeper understanding of electrical engineering? If the Baghdad battery is part of alien technology, then it implies that the aliens used electricity or other forms of energy for their own needs, and perhaps some of this knowledge was leaked to ancient humans. Even more striking references to the use of electricity or light other than fire are found in Egyptian temples. Khrami Hathor of Denderabas reliefs depicting figures holding objects that strikingly resemble giant electric lamps or crux tubes have been discovered at the famous Temple of Hathor in Dendera. Cruxa, glass flasks from which wires come out connected to certain power sources. Inside these lamps, a snake is depicted, which may be a symbolic representation of an electric discharge. Moreover, no traces of soot from torches were found in Egyptian tombs, which raises the question of how the interior was illuminated. If the ancient Egyptians really did use forms of electric lighting, then this knowledge couldn't have come out of nowhere. It could have been a direct result of alien technology transfer, where the aliens living among them demonstrated or transmitted these advanced lighting techniques, and the Egyptians tried to reproduce them or capture them in their drawings. These lamps could only be a small part of a larger energy infrastructure, possibly connected to the pyramids, which according to some theories, could act as giant resonators or power generators. The idea that the pyramids were not just tombs, but energy machines, is one of the most daring hypotheses. Some researchers suggest that their shape, location, and materials, limestone, granite, and quartz, were not chosen by chance. Quartz, for example, has piezoelectric properties, and the location of the pyramids at the junction of tectonic plates could allow them to capture and concentrate geothermal or electromagnetic energy of the Earth. If the pyramids were created or modified by extraterrestrials, then their function could be much more complex than just funerary structures. They could be giant power stations for powering their flying vehicles, communication centers, or even devices for manipulating space-time. The energy generated by these structures could have powered not only lighting, but also other more complex machines that were lost or hidden. In addition, stones of light or crystals of energy are often mentioned in myths and legends, which could serve as sources of heat, light, or even levitation. For example, the legends of Lemuria or Atlantis speak of crystals that can generate tremendous energy. While this sounds like pure fiction, current research in crystallography and quantum physics shows that crystals can have amazing properties for storing and transmitting energy. If the aliens who lived among the ancient people possessed such technology, they could use these crystals as portable energy sources or devices to enhance their abilities, and this knowledge could be lost or deliberately hidden. Hints of an ancient metallurgy that was ahead of its time also point to external interference. An iron column in Delhi, India, can withstand the effects of corrosion for more than 1,600 years, despite the humid climate. Its composition and manufacturing method, which prevents rust, still cause surprise among metallurgists. How could the ancient Indians, without modern technology, have created such an alloy? This could either be evidence of lost Earth knowledge, or more likely, technology passed down by an alien intelligence that had superior knowledge of material science and could create alloys with extraordinary properties. And finally, general descriptions of miracles and magic. The ancient texts, which are difficult to explain with primitive technologies, may actually be descriptions of the use of advanced energy devices. Levitation, healing, creating fire out of nothing, controlling the weather. All of this could have been the result of using alien technologies that seemed like inexplicable magic to ancient humans, but for us could have been explained by scientific principles beyond our current understanding. If aliens lived among humans, they could use these technologies to demonstrate their power, to help with construction, or even to control the environment. Thus, numerous evidences of obscure technologies and energy sources in ancient times indicate that humanity did not achieve this knowledge on its own. These anomalies serve as a powerful argument for the fact that alien civilizations lived among us and brought with them advanced knowledge in the field of physics, energy, and materials science. These technologies could have been part of their daily life and work on Earth, and their remnants or descriptions still cause us to wonder and make us reconsider the entire history of technological development of mankind. Genetic revelations and human origins. Were we created or modified? One of the most fundamental questions that humanity has been asking itself since time immemorial is the question of our own origins. Where did we come from? Traditional answers range from divine creation to slow and gradual Darwinian evolution. However, both of these theories face significant challenges when it comes to specific genetic and anthropological data. And it is here that the hypothesis of non-human intervention, in particular about genetic modification or direct creation of humans by alien civilizations, becomes particularly convincing. If extraterrestrials lived among us, they could have been not just observers or teachers, but also our creators or architects who left their genetic imprint in our DNA. According to the official version of evolution, Homo sapiens appeared about 300,000 years ago in Africa, and this process was the result of slow, natural selection. However, anthropological evidence shows a dramatic and inexplicable leap in the development of our species. Compared to our closest relatives, such as Neanderthals or Homo erectus, Homo sapiens has a significantly larger brain volume, the ability for complex abstract thinking, developed language, symbolic behavior, and creativity. This jump seems too fast for purely random natural selection. While other species evolved slowly, humanity suddenly emerged with a set of unique cognitive abilities. This sudden appearance of intelligence and complexity in a language for which there are no obvious intermediate links in the fossil record raises serious questions. If evolution is a gradual process, then why was this leap so rapid and directed? The hypothesis of genetic modification carried out by extraterrestrials offers a convincing explanation. Aliens with advanced knowledge of genetics could take an existing hominid species and speed up its evolution by making certain changes to its DNA to create a species capable of more complex tasks, learning, and communication. Many ancient myths about the creation of man are strikingly similar in their details. Sumerian texts describe how the Anunnaki gods, often interpreted as extraterrestrials, mixed their blood with earth clay or essence to create a human being to serve them. The Indian Puranas tell us how the gods created different races, and in some African tribes, there are myths about water people or reptilians who gave people knowledge. These stories are essentially metaphorical descriptions of bioengineering processes. The blood of the gods can be interpreted as their DNA, and the clay can be interpreted as the genetic material of existing hominids. If extraterrestrials really lived among us, they could have used humans as labor, for example, to extract resources as described in Sumerian texts, or as part of a large-scale experiment to terraform or create a new intelligent species on Earth. Modern studies of the human genome, they also add fuel to the fire of this hypothesis. Scientists have discovered a large number of non-coding or junk sequences in our DNA whose function is still not fully understood. Some researchers, such as Vladimir Gulyaev, suggest that these regions may contain hidden information or a kind of cosmic letter encoded in our genetic code. If this is the case, then our DNA may be a kind of biological hard drive, containing instructions or messages from our alien creators. Perhaps these dormant genes are waiting for certain conditions or activation to unlock the full potential of humanity, or even reconnect with those who laid them down. This concept suggests that we are not just the result of chance, but a purposeful creation that carries the genetic heritage of an alien mind. Moreover, some abnormal human physiological features that distinguish us from other primates can also be explained by alien interference. For example, our vulnerability to solar radiation as opposed to animals, our erect gait, relatively weak muscles compared to other hominids, or our unique ability to constantly self-destruct in fight wars. All of these can be side effects or purposeful characteristics embedded in our genome. Could aliens have created us with certain weaknesses or addictions to prevent us from overdeveloping or to provide control? Or are these features the result of genetic mistakes or compromises in the modification process? The phenomenon of the missing link in human evolution also remains a problem for traditional science. Despite numerous hominid finds, the transition from ape-like ancestors to Homo sapiens remains poorly documented, with sharp jumps that are difficult to explain by the gradual accumulation of mutations. If the aliens were performing genetic modification, they could fill in the gap by injecting missing links into the evolutionary lineage, creating a new species that would become Homo sapiens. Also worth mentioning are ancient artifacts depicting hybrids or creatures with unusual features. From Egyptian gods with animal heads to Indian devas and asuras with multiple arms or unusual skin, these images can be not just symbols, but a reflection of contacts with creatures that look different from ordinary people or were the result of interbreeding experiments. Some ancient skulls with unnaturally elongated shapes, such as Paracas skulls, or mummies with unusual genetic markers, also raise questions about the existence of other hominid or hybrid species that may have lived among us. Thus, numerous genetic and anthropological anomalies, as well as the universality of myths about the creation of man by gods, indicate that our origin may be much more complex than just natural selection. These facts taken together serve as a powerful argument in favor of the hypothesis of genetic modification or direct creation of humans by alien civilizations. If aliens lived among us, they could have been our creators, the architects of our mind and body, leaving behind in our genome both traces of their interference and possibly dormant abilities that are waiting in the wings. This idea not only rewrites the history of mankind, but also makes us think about our true place in the universe and the goals of those who may still be watching their creation. Anomalies in languages and symbols, cosmic codes, or extraterrestrial learning. Beyond the physical evidence, such as megaliths and unusual artifacts, there is even more subtle but equally intriguing evidence of potential alien interference. Anomalies in the development of human languages, writing systems, and symbolic systems. If aliens actually lived among us or actively interacted with early humanity, they probably not only transmitted technology, but also influenced fundamental aspects of our thinking and communication. What if some elements of our languages, ancient symbols, and even the structure of our myths are cosmic codes or reflect extraterrestrial training received from those who had a deeper understanding of the universe and its laws? One of the most surprising phenomena is the sudden and almost simultaneous appearance of complex writing in different parts of the world. Sumerian cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphs, Indus Valley writing, all of them emerged relatively quickly without the obvious long stages of primitive development characteristic of other human inventions. It is as if at some point humanity has received a ready-made template for encoding information. Moreover, many ancient languages, such as Sanskrit, are characterized by extraordinary logic, mathematical accuracy, and complex grammatical structures that, according to linguists, seem too perfect for spontaneous development. Perhaps these languages were not just the result of terrestrial evolution, but a legacy or direct result of alien training, where aliens with advanced communication systems passed on the basics of language and writing to humanity to facilitate interaction. If they lived among people, then effective communication would be extremely important, and they could speed up the process. The symbolism that permeates ancient cultures around the world also shows striking similarities that are difficult to explain by chance or simple convergent development. The spiral symbol, which is often associated with the cosmos, cyclicity and energy, is found from cave paintings to Celtic ornaments and Nazca labyrinths. The symbol of the sun disk with rays or snakes, as well as images of flying discs, often accompanying the figures of gods, are universal for Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Mayan, and Indian cultures. These recurring motifs may not just be archetypes that arise independently, but universal symbols transmitted by extraterrestrial entities that use them as a kind of visual alphabet for communication or to encode fundamental truths about the universe, its origins, or technology. If the aliens were actively interacting with humanity, they needed to develop a system of symbols that would be understandable for different groups of people. Some researchers suggest that ancient languages and myths contain hidden cosmic codes or scientific and technical information encrypted in the form of allegories and metaphors. For example, the complex cosmogony of the Indian Vedas, describing billions of years of cosmic cycles, yugas, or the Mayan, the calendar, with its incredible accuracy and understanding of the movement of celestial bodies, could have been not just the fruit of observation, but a direct transfer of information from alien civilizations that had a more complete knowledge of the universe, its cycles, and our place in it. If extraterrestrials really lived among us, they could transmit this knowledge in a form accessible to the perception of that time, encoding it in myths and religious texts so that it can be preserved through the ages, waiting for humanity to be ready to decipher it. Let's also consider the phenomenon of bird languages, or secret languages mentioned in various mystical traditions, which are believed to allow you to communicate with higher forces or receive sacred knowledge. Perhaps these languages are distorted memories of real attempts to communicate with extraterrestrial entities that could use other forms of communication that are not based on the usual sounds, or that were able to transmit information directly to consciousness, telepathy, which was perceived as a voice from above or unusual language. This also includes numerology found in ancient systems, such as gematria in Judaism or Pythagorean numerology. Some researchers argue that these systems contain mathematical patterns that go beyond random coincidences and point to a deeper, mathematically perfect structure of the universe. If these systems were derived from extraterrestrials, they could be part of their universal language, based on pure mathematics and geometry, which allowed them to communicate complex ideas without a language barrier. The emergence of uniform archetypes in the collective unconscious, as described by Jung, can also be explained by extraterrestrial influence. Images of the hero savior, wise old man, Mother Earth, evil demon. These universal images can be not just the result of human experience, but echoes of real contacts with alien beings who perform certain roles in the ancient world. If extraterrestrials lived among us, they could take on different forms or play different roles, which were then etched into the collective psyche of humanity. The challenges to investigating anomalies in languages and symbols lie in their interpretation. Symbols have many meanings, and myths are open to various interpretations. However, using comparative analysis and computer modeling, it is possible to identify statistically significant coincidences and patterns that are difficult to explain by chance. The study of neurolinguistic features and their relationship to ancient languages may also provide clues to how extraterrestrials may have influenced human thinking. Thus, anomalies in the languages, scripts, and symbols of ancient civilizations are powerful, if more subtle, evidence that extraterrestrial civilizations lived among us, and they actively participated in shaping our minds, communication, and worldview. They could transmit to us not only technology, but also cosmic codes encrypted in our languages and symbols, waiting in the wings to be deciphered. These hidden messages that permeate our culture and consciousness indicate that we are not just the result of Earth's evolution, but part of a much grander cosmic plan in which the alien presence plays a key role. Unexplained catastrophes and cyclicity cosmic events, or the intervention of other civilizations? If we assume that extraterrestrial civilizations lived among us in the past, then the question inevitably arises about the reasons for the disappearance of some ancient civilizations and about the nature of global catastrophes that, according to myths, repeatedly struck the Earth. Were these cataclysms exclusively natural phenomena, or could they be the result of cosmic events predicted or even provoked by extraterrestrials, and possibly the intervention of other hostile alien civilizations? This chapter explores the cyclical nature of these catastrophes and their relationship to the supposed alien presence. From Sumerian epics to the Bible, from Norse sagas to Mayan lore, stories of the Great Flood that destroyed almost all life on Earth are constantly being told. These myths are strikingly similar in their details, including the idea of the salvation of the chosen and the subsequent revival of civilization. Although geological evidence points to repeated global climate changes and sea level rises at the end of the last ice age, the scale and synchronicity of these events described in the myths suggests something more grandiose than just the melting of ice. If extraterrestrials lived among us, they could have been the ones who warned the chosen of the impending catastrophe, perhaps even helped build arks or shelters. Their advanced knowledge of astronomy and geology allowed them to predict such events, such as those caused by a comet impact, a change in the tilt of the Earth's axis, or large solar flares. In this case, the aliens would act not just as observers, but as protectors, or at least those who provided instructions for survival. In addition to floods, ancient texts describe other types of global catastrophes: fire rains, earthquakes, climate change, the fall of heavenly stones. For example, Indian texts such as the Mahabharata detail catastrophic wars involving the use of weapons of the gods, which caused enormous destruction, evaporation of water, vitrification, glazing of sand, and diseases similar to the effects of radiation exposure. Availability of vitrified products, ruins, melted to glass sand, in some ancient sites, such as Mohenjo-Daro, may indeed indicate the use of high-energy weapons, possibly nuclear. If these descriptions are not metaphors, but evidence of real events, then the question arises: who waged these wars and with what technologies? It could be conflicts between various alien factions living on Earth, or a war between aliens and a highly developed Earth civilization that existed before them. The result of these conflicts could have been catastrophes that completely changed the face of the planet and erased much of its history. The idea of cyclical disasters and visits also permeates many ancient traditions. The Mayan calendar, the Indian yugas, cycles of time describing periods of prosperity and decline, and the concepts of the Golden Age and subsequent decline in Greek and other mythologies all point to the fact that ancient people perceived history not as a linear, but as a cyclical process. These cycles could be associated with regular cosmic events, such as the passage of the solar system through certain regions of the galaxy, where the probability of encountering asteroids or cosmic radiation increases, or with cycles of activity of our own star. If extraterrestrials lived among us or periodically visited Earth, then their visits could be synchronized with these cosmic cycles. They could come at favorable times for the transfer of knowledge and creation, and leave before the onset of catastrophic cycles, leaving humanity to cope with the consequences on its own or preparing it for survival. Some researchers suggest that the planets of the solar system themselves may have been involved in these ancient catastrophes. For example, the hypothesis that Mars was once inhabited but lost its atmosphere in a catastrophe, or that the moon is an artificial object, hollow inside and brought into Earth's orbit. If these cosmic bodies were also objects of alien interest, then their fate could be related to large-scale interplanetary conflicts or space experiments that affected the Earth as well. Perhaps some missing fossils or geological strata are the result of these ancient cataclysms, which were so powerful that they erased entire epochs from the geological record. This would explain the missing links in evolution and the lack of direct evidence for the existence of some ancient civilizations or species. Challenges in research in this area are to distinguish metaphorical descriptions from actual events, as well as to search for geological and archaeological evidence that could confirm the presence of large-scale, synchronous catastrophes that cannot be explained by purely natural processes. Using satellite data to search for anomalies on the ocean floor, which may have been caused by megascale tsunami megamasштабов, or analyzing trace elements in geological layers that indicate cosmic impacts can provide new clues. Thus, the inexplicable catastrophes and cyclical events described in ancient myths and confirmed by some geological anomalies are powerful evidence that alien civilizations not only lived among us, but were also involved in cosmic events that had catastrophic consequences for the Earth. They could be harbingers of disasters as well as the cause of them, perhaps as a result of wars or experiments. These global cataclysms not only change the face of the planet, but may also have caused much of our true history to be forgotten or erased, leaving us with only fragments of memories and unexplained ruins. Understanding this cycle and the role of extraterrestrials in it can help us predict future events and possibly avoid the mistakes of the past. Mysterious artifacts and misplaced objects, UPARTs, tangible evidence of an extraterrestrial presence. After looking at large-scale engineering feats, evidence of ancient aviation, and suspected genetic interventions and disasters, our gaze turns to more tangible but equally mysterious evidence. Mysterious artifacts known as UPARTs, out-of-place objects. These objects, found in geological strata or archaeological contexts, that according to all scientific evidence, must have formed long before the advent of humans or their technological capabilities, are the most direct and convincing indication that extraterrestrials did not just visit Earth, but lived among us, using and possibly losing or leaving behind advanced technologies, tools and technologies unthinkable for that era. Each such artifact is a kind of temporal anomaly that challenges the entire traditional timeline of human progress. One of the most famous and well-studied UPARTs is the Antikythera computer, found in 1901 on a sunken ancient Greek ship. This sophisticated mechanical device, dating from about 150–100 BC, is an analog computer capable of predicting planetary positions and solar and lunar eclipses with amazing accuracy. Its mechanism consists of more than 30 bronze gears, many of which have a differential transmission, a technology that was thought to have been invented only in the 18th century. The detail, complexity, and engineering excellence of this device are unparalleled in the ancient world. No other artifacts from that era show this level of precision and miniaturization in mechanics. How did the ancient Greeks, whose technology, according to our ideas, did not allow us to create such complex mechanisms, were able to build it? Was this the result of a single genius who was 2,000 years ahead of his time? Or was it technology inherited from an older, possibly alien source? or even copied from an extraterrestrial sample obtained from creatures that lived among them. If such technology was transferred, then this explains its sudden appearance without visible predecessors in the archaeological record. This device, if it was created under the influence of extraterrestrials, serves as direct proof that their knowledge covered not only construction and astronomy, but also complex mechanics and computational principles that they may have used in their daily life on Earth. An even more ancient and controversial oopart, a hammer from London, discovered in the 1930s in Texas. This hammer with a wooden handle was encrusted in a piece of sandstone, which according to geological data belongs to the Cretaceous period. That is, it is about 100 million years old. How could a metal hammer, a tool that is inextricably linked to human civilization, end up in a layer of rock that was formed tens of millions of years before the first hominids, let alone modern humans, appeared? Traditional explanations, such as a hammer falling into a crack that then filled with sediment, seem extremely unconvincing, given the rock density and integration of the artifact. Moreover, the analysis of hammer metal, according to some sources, showed its extraordinary purity and rust resistance, indicating advanced metallurgical processes that are not available even today without sophisticated technologies. If this hammer is not a fake and not the result of an incredible geological combination of circumstances, it is direct evidence that intelligent beings with advanced technologies existed on Earth tens of millions of years ago. These could be aliens who lived here in prehistoric times, leaving behind random objects from their everyday life or work. Next, balls from Klerksdorp found in South Africa in a mine. These are small metal spheres, about 1 inch in diameter, with 3 parallel grooves running along their equator. They were found in pyrophyllite rock, which is estimated to be 2.8 billion years old. These spheres are so perfectly round and symmetrical, and the grooves are so precisely plotted that they appear artificially created, despite their incredible age. Although geologists offer natural explanations for their formation, their flawless geometry raises serious doubts about their purely natural origin. If these objects are indeed artifacts, then they indicate the existence of an incredibly ancient civilization on Earth, long before the emergence of multicellular life, not to mention humans. These creators could have been extraterrestrials who visited or lived on Earth in the earliest stages of its history, conducting research, mining resources, or even colonizing the planet. These balls could have been part of their tools or some kind of marking left for posterity. Other intriguing ooparts include gold artifacts found in South America, mostly in Colombia, which, according to the official version, are stylized images of birds or fish, but in their shape strikingly resemble modern aircraft or space shuttles with wings, stabilizers, and even elements similar to the chassis. Some of these artifacts were tested in wind tunnels and demonstrated excellent flight performance. How could the ancient masters, who had no knowledge of aerodynamics, have created such accurate models? Perhaps they copied the flying machines they saw in the sky, belonging to alien aviators who lived among them or regularly visited these regions. This suggests that the aliens used these machines not only for interstellar travel, but also for movement on the surface of the Earth. No less mysterious are the crystal skulls found in Central and South America. Carved from single pieces of quartz, these skulls have an amazing precision and polish that modern tools find difficult to replicate without serious technological effort. Their origin and manufacturing methods remain a mystery, and many assume that they were created using advanced technologies that were not available to Native American civilizations. Some even believe that these skulls are information carriers or communication devices that can store huge amounts of data or even generate energy fields. If so, they could have been alien artifacts left behind for humanity to discover and activate one day. The challenges associated with learning ooparts are huge. Many of them were discovered in conditions that do not meet today's strict scientific standards of archaeology, making them vulnerable to accusations of falsification or misinterpretation. However, completely ignoring these artifacts without proper research is also unscientific. It is necessary to conduct thorough, independent examinations using the most modern methods of dating and analyzing materials, such as mass spectrometry, electron microscopy, and isotope analysis. If it is determined that the materials or their composition do not correspond to natural samples or known technologies of that era, this will become a powerful argument in favor of their anomalous origin. Perhaps in some cases we are dealing with the lost technologies of terrestrial civilizations, but in others, especially where the age is measured in millions or billions of years, this is a direct indication of an extraterrestrial presence. Thus, parts represent tangible evidence that there may have been technologies and knowledge in the history of the Earth that were not invented by humans, or they were significantly ahead of their own development. These misplaced artifacts are a kind of time capsules that carry information about civilizations or entities that may have visited our planet and, more importantly, lived among us, leaving behind these mysterious fragments of the past. If we dare to acknowledge their true nature, it will not only rewrite the history books, but also open our eyes to a much more complex and exciting reality, where time and technology have not always evolved linearly, and Earth's history has been the scene for events we are only beginning to guess at. These artifacts are not just stones or metals. They are silent messages from those who have been here before us. Underground and underwater shelters, hidden bases, and secrets of the ocean depths. Once we are immersed in the world of artifacts left on the surface or in geological layers, our attention inevitably turns to those places that are by nature ideal for hiding, the depths of the Earth and the vast expanses of the world's oceans. If extraterrestrials really lived among us, they would need hidden, hard-to-reach bases for their operations, research, or even as shelters from disasters. The idea of underground cities, vast tunnel systems, and hidden underwater bases of alien civilizations, or the remnants of ancient Earth civilizations that came into contact with extraterrestrials, is one of the most intriguing hypotheses in the theory of an extraterrestrial presence on Earth. These secret hideaways could be ideal places for them to stay and operate for a long time without being noticed by humanity. Underground cities and tunnel systems are not just myths. In Turkey, for example, Derinkuyu was discovered, Derinkuyu, a huge underground city stretching tens of meters deep into the earth, capable of accommodating tens of thousands of people with everything necessary for a long, autonomous existence. Its ventilation shafts, water supply systems, warehouses, and living quarters are carved into the rock with incredible skill. Although officially attributed to early Christians seeking refuge from persecution, the scale and complexity of the structure is beyond the capabilities of the era, unless advanced technology was used. Could such underground complexes have been created or modified by extraterrestrials, who used them as their bases or provided people as shelters during global cataclysms? Legends of subterranean realms, such as Agartha or Shambhala, which are believed to be inhabited by wise beings, may also be echoes of actual underground complexes where extraterrestrials or their descendants continue to live by observing the surface. These underground systems may extend for thousands of kilometers. There is abundant evidence of giant, perfectly smooth tunnels found in various parts of the world that cannot be explained by natural geological processes or human technology of the time. For example, in South America and Siberia, there are stories of unexplained tunnels leading deep underground, which, according to legends, were created by gods or previous civilizations. If the aliens lived on Earth, they needed efficient means of transportation underground, and these tunnels could be part of their transport or communication network, used for rapid movement or for communication between hidden bases. They could have used high-energy drilling rigs or rock-melting techniques to create such perfectly smooth and extensive passages. However, the greatest potential for hidden alien bases is the ocean depths. The world ocean is the least studied part of our planet. Its depths remain almost inaccessible to human exploration. The sheer pressure, total darkness, and impenetrability of most of our technologies make it an ideal location for hidden complexes. Many reports of unidentified underwater objects, NGOs, that demonstrate incredible speed, maneuverability, and the ability to instantly disappear or plunge to great depths could be linked to the activities of such bases or vehicles. These NGOs, which sometimes appear out of the water and then immediately disappear into the sky, may be evidence that extraterrestrials use the Earth's oceans as their operational bases. There are many unexplained underwater anomalies that cannot be explained by natural phenomena. The Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan, a giant underwater step structure with clear geometric shapes and terraces, is controversial about its natural or artificial origin. If it is an artificial structure, its age of more than 10,000 years calls into question the generally accepted framework for the development of civilization. Could it be the remains of an underwater city or base, built by aliens or a highly developed civilization under their influence? Similar underwater anomalies, such as perfectly circular formations on the ocean floor detected by sonar, or seamounts with unusual, symmetrical shapes, could also be man-made structures. Moreover, legends about sunken continents and cities Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, can be not just myths, but memories of real highly developed civilizations that could have been destroyed by cataclysms, but whose technologies or bases may have been preserved by extraterrestrials. If aliens lived among us and had the ability to survive underwater, they could have created vast underwater colonies that remain hidden from us to this day. These bases could serve a variety of purposes, from resource extraction to experimentation, from long-term surveillance of humanity to strategic military locations. The challenges in exploring underground and underwater anomalies are enormous. Deep-sea exploration is extremely expensive and technically challenging. The sheer pressure, darkness, and distance make every dive an expedition into uncharted territory. Underground exploration is also fraught with dangers and high costs. However, the development of new technologies such as autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, with highly sensitive sonar and a better understanding of the geology of the ocean floor can help us discover and explore these hidden structures. Moreover, analysis of seismic data and gravity field anomalies can reveal hidden underground cavities and tunnels. Thus, the idea of underground and underwater shelters is another powerful argument in favor of an alien presence on Earth. It suggests that extraterrestrials lived among us, using these hidden places for their operations, or left their legacy there. These secret complexes could be not just ruins, but functioning bases that are still in use, unnoticed by most people. Unraveling these profound mysteries can not only rewrite the history of mankind, but also reveal the existence of completely different life forms or civilizations that coexisted with us on this planet, hidden under water and rock, waiting in the wings to be rediscovered. Mysterious images and petroglyphs, ancient evidence of encounters with other worlds. After considering material evidence such as megaliths and uparts, as well as genetic and linguistic anomalies, our gaze inevitably turns to visual evidence left to us by ancient civilizations. All over the world, on the walls of caves, rocks, temples, and tombs, thousands of mysterious images and petroglyphs have been found that depict something that completely does not fit into the usual idea of the flora, fauna, or people of that time. These drawings, like encrypted messages from the distant past, persistently whisper that ancient artists captured encounters with beings from other worlds, their technology and possibly themselves living among humanity. One of the most striking examples is the rock carvings at Tasselin Ager, Algeria, in the Sahara. Here, in an area that was once a fertile savanna, not a desert, thousands of petroglyphs depict strange figures with round helmets on their heads, resembling modern spacesuits, as well as creatures with unusually large black eyes and antennae. Some of them are clearly floating in the air or are located inside flying vehicles. One of the most famous figures, the so-called Great Martian God, towers above the other images. Dating from the period between 6000 and 2000 BC, these drawings created by nomadic tribes cannot be explained as simple images of animals or ordinary people. They are too detailed and specific to be pure fantasy. The question arises, what or who did these ancient people see? If aliens lived among them or regularly visited these places, using spacesuits to protect themselves from the Earth's atmosphere, then these drawings are a direct visual account of such contacts, and the artists simply captured what they saw with their own eyes without understanding the technological nature of what they saw. Similar images are found all over the world. Dolina Valcamonica petroglyphs dating back to around 10,000 BC have been discovered in the Valcamonica Valley in Italy, which include figures that look like astronauts wearing helmets. In the Kimberley Caves of Australia, Aboriginal people have for centuries revered images of the Wan Jin, mythical creatures with large black eyes and no mouth, who, according to their legends, came out of the clouds and created the world. These descriptions and visual images are strikingly similar to modern ideas about extraterrestrials, especially the so-called Greys. Could these ancient tribes have actually encountered extraterrestrial beings who lived among them or periodically appeared, leaving an indelible mark on their culture and art? Next, you should pay attention to artifacts depicting aircraft. In Chapter 2, we already mentioned golden figures from Colombia that look like airplanes. However, there are other, less well-known, but no less mysterious images. For example, the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs in the Temple of Seti in Abydos, which in certain light and angle seem to represent helicopters, submarines, planes, and even tanks. Although official Egyptology attributes this phenomenon to a palimpsest, the superimposition of later hieroglyphs on older ones, the striking similarity to modern machines that the ancient Egyptians could not have known is highly suspicious. If this is not an optical illusion, then the Egyptians may have seen these machines, which could have belonged to extraterrestrials who lived among them and used such equipment. These images may have been attempts to capture what they were observing without understanding the principle of operation. Special attention should be paid to the images of sun disks and winged disks, which are found in Egyptian, Sumerian, Assyrian, and Mesoamerican iconography. These symbols, often associated with deities or celestial objects, can in some cases be interpreted as flying objects or UFOs. In particular, the winged disc one of the Assyrians often depicts a figure inside the disc, which is very similar to the pilot in an aircraft. This is not just a stylization of the sun, but perhaps an image of real flying vehicle on which alien entities moved and which they used as a means of transportation during their stay on Earth. Some petroglyphs depict figures emanating from or emitting light. For example, in some drawings in Utah, USA, there are figures with large heads and antennas from which rays of light emanate. These rays could be not just symbols, but an image of a real glow emanating from alien ships or their technologies, which made a strong impression on ancient witnesses. It is also interesting to consider the Ica stones from Peru. Thousands of carved stones found in the Ica area depict scenes that are traditionally thought to be completely impossible. Dinosaurs coexisting with humans, as well as complex medical operations such as organ transplants, cesarean sections, and even brain surgeries using instruments very similar to modern surgery. If these stones are authentic, and their authenticity is actively disputed, then they point to two shocking possibilities. Either humans live side by side with dinosaurs, which is contrary to paleontology, or more likely in the context of our hypothesis, extraterrestrials with advanced medical knowledge and capabilities lived among humans and performed these operations. They may also have brought or contained dinosaurs. The images on the Ica rocks may be evidence of alien biomedical activity on Earth. The challenges in interpreting these images are to distinguish between cultural symbolism and literal images. Ancient art was often metaphorical. However, the repetitive motifs, specific details that cannot be explained by terrestrial analogies, and the coincidence of these images with modern reports of UFOs and contacts indicate that this is not just a fantasy. A more in-depth interdisciplinary analysis of these images is needed, possibly using pattern recognition and computer reconstruction techniques to reveal hidden patterns. Thus, the mysterious images and petroglyphs scattered around the globe are powerful, if mute, evidence that alien civilizations did not just visit Earth, but may have lived among us in the distant past. Ancient artists, using the means available to them, captured what they saw: creatures in unusual clothes, flying machines, and amazing technologies. These drawings are not just works of art, but visual reports of contacts of the first kind, which are still waiting for their full understanding and recognition. They remind us that our history could have been much more rich and varied than we imagine, filled with encounters with those who came from other worlds. Astronomical knowledge and calendars, a gift from heaven or your own genius? Moving from pictorial evidence to the intellectual achievements of antiquity, we are faced with another facet of the inexplicable: the astounding astronomical knowledge and complexity of calendars that were created by civilizations whose technological capabilities, according to the official version, were extremely limited. How could the ancient people, without telescopes, precise chronometers, and sophisticated mathematics, have had such a deep understanding of the movement of celestial bodies that was thousands of years ahead of its time? This anomaly strongly suggests that this knowledge was either transmitted to them by extraterrestrial entities that lived among them, or that humanity received it from a long-vanished but highly developed civilization, which in turn had contact with aliens. The most striking example is the Mayan calendar, or rather, the system of calendar cycles developed by Mesoamerican civilizations. The long count used by the Maya could predict astronomical events with incredible accuracy for thousands or even millions of years ahead. They knew about the precession of the equinoxes, the full cycle of which is about 25,800 years, the movement of Venus to the minute, as well as the cycles of Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Moreover, their calendar systems included complex mathematical operations that required an understanding of concepts similar to our decimal system, as well as the concept of zero. How could a civilization that, according to our ideas, was at the level of the Stone Age and did not have a wheel, could have such deep astronomical and mathematical knowledge? This was not the result of random observations. This indicates a systematic transfer of high-level knowledge. If aliens lived among the Mayans or their predecessors, they may have been the ones who passed on this knowledge to them, perhaps using it to track cosmic events that were important for their own purposes, or to predict periods favorable for contact or important changes on Earth. The Mayan calendar, with its predictions about the end of cycles, may not just be a prophecy, but a warning based on extraterrestrial data about future cosmic events. Another striking case is the astronomical knowledge of the Dogon tribe of Mali, Africa. These people, living in isolation, have for centuries possessed detailed knowledge of the Sirius star system, including the existence of Sirius B, a white dwarf that is invisible to the naked eye, its orbital period of 50 years, and its incredibly high density. They also knew about the existence of the fourth moon of Jupiter and the rings of Saturn. This knowledge was passed down to them through oral traditions and rituals, which they attribute to their gods, the Nomo, who, according to their descriptions, were amphibious and came from Sirius. How could a tribe without telescopes have such deep and accurate knowledge? This could not have been the result of a random observation. The only logical explanation is direct contact with an alien civilization from Sirius, which lived among them in the distant past, transmitting this knowledge as part of their cultural interactions. Stories of Nomos descending from the sky on an ark that landed in a lake are clear evidence of such contact and indicate that the aliens may have lived close to humans, adapting to Earth's conditions. Egyptian astronomy also demonstrates amazing knowledge. The accuracy of the orientation of the pyramids of Giza to the cardinal directions and relative to the starry sky, for example, the alignment of the shafts of the Great Pyramid with certain stars such as Sirius and Tuban, is amazing. Such measurements require not only a deep understanding of celestial mechanics, but also high-precision instruments that are believed to have been absent from the ancient Egyptians. Who gave them this knowledge, and how did they gain access to such information? Perhaps the aliens who lived among the Egyptians not only helped them with their construction, but also passed on their astronomical maps and principles that were important for their own navigation or energy purposes. Also worth mentioning are the cosmological models found in Sumerian and Babylonian texts that describe our solar system with amazing accuracy, including the existence of all the planets, their order, and even their relative sizes, which again cannot be explained without advanced telescopes. Sumerian tables, for example, describe Nibiru, a planet that they say is beyond the orbit of Neptune and has a very elongated orbit, approaching Earth every 3,600 years. Although the existence of Nibiru is not proven by modern science, the very mention of such a planet outside of Neptune, which they allegedly saw, is extremely intriguing. This knowledge may have come from extraterrestrials who came from this or another planet and passed on their cosmological models to early humanity. Even Stonehenge and other cromlechs in Europe that served as ancient observatories show a deep understanding of the sun and moon cycles, including the prediction of eclipses. While this knowledge may have been accumulated over millennia of observation, its complexity and accuracy hint at the influence or guidance of a more advanced mind that may have accelerated the process or provided initial data. If the aliens lived among the ancient Celts or their ancestors, they could have used these structures for their own astronomical observations or as educational tools for early humanity. The challenge for the study of astronomical knowledge is to prove that this knowledge was transmitted, not accumulated independently, and that it is not the result of random coincidences or late interpretations. However, when we see repeated patterns of precise, complex astronomical data that cannot be obtained without high-tech equipment, the probability of external transmission becomes much higher. Using astroarchaeology and comparative myth analysis can help us identify these hidden connections. Thus, the astounding astronomical knowledge and complexity of the calendars of ancient civilizations are powerful evidence that alien civilizations did not just visit Earth, but also lived among us, sharing their advanced knowledge of the universe. These gifts from heaven not only shaped our understanding of the cosmos, but may also have been part of a larger plan related to their own purposes on Earth. This knowledge is not just ancient records, but direct messages from those who came from the stars, indicating their presence and influence on our development. Ancient stories and modern UFO sightings, a chronicle of cosmic interaction through millennia. After delving into the world of ancient knowledge, technology, and images that point to alien interference, it's time to take a look at the phenomenon of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, which is seemingly a hallmark of the modern era, but actually has deep roots in human history. If extraterrestrials lived among us in the past, then it is logical to assume that they use their own flying vehicles. And these vehicles, being witnesses of thousands of years, left their mark not only in ancient myths about heavenly chariots, but also in countless chronicles and works of art that describe unexplained phenomena in the sky. This chapter explores the continuous thread of cosmic interaction, tracing it from antiquity to the present day, and showing how modern UFO sightings can be a continuation of the same story that began thousands of years ago, confirming the hypothesis of a constant or periodic presence of extraterrestrials among us. Ancient texts around the world abound with descriptions of what we would call UFOs today. In the Bible, for example, in addition to the already mentioned wheel within a wheel of the prophet Ezekiel, there are other references to pillars of fire and clouds that led the people of Israel through the desert, or chariots of fire that carried the prophets to heaven. These descriptions are not just metaphorical, they contain details that indicate technological objects that move through the air, emit light and noise, and have the ability to move directionally. If these objects were the flying vehicles of alien beings living among the ancient Jews, or observing them, then the biblical stories become a chronicle of actual encounters where technological objects were interpreted as divine manifestations. In ancient Rome and Greece, there are also records of strange phenomena in the sky. Historians such as Titus Livy and Pliny the Elder mention shields flying across the sky, flaming discs, long bodies like rays, and other unexplained aerial phenomena that were often associated with omens or the intervention of the gods. For example, in 218 BC, Titus Livy describes round shields flying over Rome. These descriptions, made by educated people of their time, show real observations that did not fit into their understanding of the world. If the aliens lived among the ancient Romans or Greeks, their flying machines could have been seen and then interpreted as part of divine intervention, because there was no other explanatory model. Medieval chronicles are also full of references to sky ships, flying dragons, fireballs, and ghost armies in the sky. For example, in 776 AD, during the siege of Segeberg Castle, Segeberg in Germany, the Franks and Saxons witnessed the appearance of flying shields that apparently divided the warring armies, forcing them to stop fighting. This event has been documented in several independent sources. These flying shields could be UFOs controlled by extraterrestrials, who may have observed conflicts or even intervened in them, pursuing their own unknown goals. In the Renaissance and modern times, UFO sightings continue. There are known engravings depicting flying objects over European cities, for example, over Basel in 1566, where many black and round balls appeared in the sky, as well as over Nuremberg in 1561, which described a space battle with flying cylinders and discs. These visual evidences, created before the era of airplanes and airships, indicate that humanity for centuries witnessed phenomena that could not be explained by its then-current technology. If extraterrestrials were constantly present on Earth, then these observations are only fragments of their activity which were interpreted differently in different epochs. With the beginning of the 20th century and the era of aviation, the UFO phenomenon takes on a new dimension. The evidence is becoming more numerous and detailed, and the term flying saucer itself has come into use since the case of Kenneth Arnold in 1947. Numerous military pilots, civilians, and astronauts reported sightings of objects that showed incredible speeds, instantaneous changes in direction, no visible engines, and the ability to maneuver beyond the reach of Earth-based aircraft. Incidents such as Roswell 1947, where an alien spacecraft supposedly crashed, or Phoenix 1997, when thousands of people saw a giant V-shaped object in the sky, have become iconic. These modern observations are not just similar to ancient descriptions. They show the same characteristics of sky chariots: the ability to fly silently, maneuverability, control over light. This indicates the continuity of the alien presence, which may have been constant throughout history, but it is only in the modern era, with the development of technology, that we have begun adekvatno to recognize it more adequately. The hypothesis that extraterrestrials have lived among us, or at least regularly visited, for thousands of years provides a unified explanation for these disparate historical and modern observations. If they're really here, then the UFOs are their vehicles. The motivations for their flights could vary from exploration and observation in ancient times to more active interaction or even covert control in modern times. Government secrecy of UFO information, black projects, and attempts to reverse engineer, copy alien technologies that are rumored may also be a direct consequence of their presence. If extraterrestrials live among us, they may have bases that regularly use their apparatuses, and these apparatuses will inevitably be noticed. The challenges to UFO research are the lack of publicly available, irrefutable evidence supported by official scientific institutions. Many observations turn out to be fakes, identification errors, or natural phenomena. However, a significant part of the observations remains unexplained. Transparency on the part of governments, systematic data collection, the use of modern surveillance technologies such as radars, satellites, thermal imagers, and a multidisciplinary approach to case-by-case analysis are needed. Discoveries in recent years, when the Pentagon officially recognized the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and released some videos, show that the veil of secrecy is beginning to open, which is an important step towards confirming that these phenomena have an unearthly origin. Thus, ancient stories and modern UFO sightings are not isolated phenomena. They represent a continuous timeline of cosmic interactions that can be traced back through the millennia. This evidence, from images on ancient vases to high-quality U.S. Navy videos, indicates that alien civilizations not only visited Earth, but may have lived among us, using their advanced flying vehicles for various purposes. Studying this evidence not only rewrites the history of aviation, but also opens our eyes to a much more complex reality, where humanity coexists with unearthly forces that may affect our fate much more than we can imagine. Ancient gods and demons. Were they extraterrestrials or manifestations from other dimensions? We've delved into the material and technological aspects of the alleged alien presence, but one of the most fundamental and pervasive themes in human history is the myths of gods and demons. Almost every ancient culture had its own pantheon of powerful beings who interfered in human affairs, gave knowledge, punished disobedience, and even entered into relationships with people. What if these gods and demons were not just figments of religious imagination or metaphors for natural phenomena, but literal descriptions of alien entities that lived among us, or beings from other dimensions that interact with our reality? This chapter explores this bold hypothesis, trying to find parallels between mythological images and modern ideas about extraterrestrial or interdimensional beings. In Sumerian, Egyptian, Greek, Indian, and Norse mythology, gods are often depicted as physical beings who lived on Earth, had human traits, though sometimes with features such as unusual height, strength, or other physical attributes, came into conflict with each other, suffered from emotions, and even had offspring with people. The Sumerian Anunnaki, who according to Zecharia Sitchin's translations came from the planet Nibiru, are described as beings who created humans to work in mines, then lived among them, created hybrids and ruled cities. They were a source of knowledge about agriculture, metallurgy, and astronomy. If these myths are not just allegories but historical records, then the Anunnaki could have been aliens who colonized Earth or used it as an outpost, and their divinity stemmed from their superior technology and knowledge compared to primitive humanity. Their power over humanity would not be mystical, but technological. Similarly, in ancient Egyptian mythology, gods such as Horus, Osiris, and Isis are often depicted with unusual animal or bird heads, but with human bodies. Their coming is connected with civilization and order. References to the Golden Age. Radi of the gods' rule on earth when they walked among men may be memories of a period of direct contact and cohabitation with alien civilizations. The ability of the Egyptian gods to fly in boats or ships across the sky, their knowledge of astronomy and engineering, as we have already seen, perfectly correlates with the technologies that aliens might have. The Greek gods of Olympus, with all their human weaknesses, quarrels, love affairs, and meddling in the destinies of humans, can also be interpreted as highly evolved but not sinless alien beings. Their ability to move through the sky, Zeus on an eagle, Athena on a winged chariot, their incredible technology, Zeus' lightning weapon, Hephaestus' forge, their longevity and ability to change their appearance, all this can be explained in terms of advanced alien biology and technology, and not purely magical abilities. Their Olympus could be a hidden base, and their interventions could be operations related to their targets on Earth. On the other hand, the concept of demons, evil spirits, and entities that tempt, kidnap, or harm a person can also be reinterpreted. In some cases, demons can be interpreted as alien beings with hostile intentions, or as entities from other dimensions whose interaction with our world is perceived as frightening or destructive. Stories of succubi and incubi, abductions and possession all bear a striking resemblance to contemporary accounts of alien abductions and encounters, especially with greys or reptilians, who are often described as beings capable of influencing consciousness and manipulating reality. If these demons were real, then they could be representatives of alien civilizations with different moral principles or research methods that seemed evil to humans. It is also worth mentioning the phenomenon of men in black, which according to modern legends appear after UFO sightings and intimidate witnesses. These figures, often described as oddly dressed, with unnatural mannerisms and mysterious cars, can be either agents of the deep state hiding information, or more boldly extraterrestrials or their hybrids operating on Earth to maintain a cover-up of their presence. Their ability to appear out of nowhere and disappear, their unusual speech and behavior, all this indicates that they are not ordinary people, but rather creatures that live among us, but belong to a different order. Challenges in this area lie in distinguishing mythological fantasy from historical evidence, as well as in overcoming religious and cultural prejudices. Interpreting gods and demons as extraterrestrials can be perceived as blasphemy or an attempt to desacralize ancient beliefs. However, using comparative mythological analysis, linguistics, archaeology, and data from modern UFO research, it is possible to identify patterns and parallels that point to a deeper material basis for these myths. It's important to avoid literally interpreting everything, but be open to the possibility that the core of these stories are memories of actual contacts. Thus, the ancient gods and demons that permeate the mythology of all the peoples of the earth can be not just fiction, but encoded memories of real alien entities that lived among us. These beings who possessed advanced technology, knowledge, and possibly unusual physical or mental abilities were perceived by primitive humanity as supernatural forces. The solution of this mystery not only rewrites the history of religion and anthropology, but also opens our eyes to the fact that our world was, and perhaps still is, an arena for the interaction of various intelligent civilizations, some of which live next to us, directing, controlling, or simply observing the development of humanity, remaining behind the veil of myth and reality. Legends. Mysterious disappearances and abductions. Humanity as an object of research or a victim of hidden goals? After reviewing large-scale engineering projects, ancient technologies, space myths, and images that point to the long-standing presence of non-human civilizations on Earth, we can't ignore one of the most disturbing and mysterious categories of phenomena that permeates both ancient legends and modern accounts: mysterious disappearances and abductions. If extraterrestrials have actually lived among us or actively interacted with humanity throughout history, then it is quite logical to assume that they could have used humans for their own purposes, be it research, experiments, or even something more sinister. This phenomenon, which makes us see humanity not only as a subject, but also as an object of influence, is one of the most powerful arguments in favor of a permanent, hidden alien presence. Throughout human history, there are countless stories of people who have disappeared without a trace. In ancient cultures, such disappearances were often attributed to gods, spirits, or other supernatural forces that took the chosen or recalcitrant into their domain. For example, there are stories in the Bible about Enoch and Elijah being taken up to heaven alive for no apparent reason. In other mythologies, people went to underground worlds, underwater realms, or heavenly islands, from which they did not return or return changed. What if these myths are distorted memories of actual abduction committed by alien entities that took people for their own purposes? For ancient man, unable to explain the disappearance of man in the absence of natural predators or obvious causes, the only explanation was the intervention of higher forces. These gods or spirits that could travel between dimensions or on high-tech vehicles were able to disappear with humans in ways that seemed like magic. With the advent of the modern era, especially since the mid-20th century, the phenomenon of disappearances and abductions takes on new, more specific features associated with unidentified flying objects, UFOs. Thousands of reports of abductions describe strikingly similar scenarios, regardless of the cultural background or geographical location of the witnesses. People report being taken out of their homes or cars, often in a state of paralysis, and taken to flying machines, where they underwent medical examinations that included taking biological samples, skin, hair, sperm, eggs, implanting small objects in their bodies, and even performing strange hybridization experiments. These testimonies, often supported by physical marks on the body, scratches, burns, unexplained scars, or psychological consequences, post-traumatic stress disorder, memory loss, or flashbacks, are too numerous and detailed to be just a mass hallucination or fiction. The nature of these abductions, especially their apparent scientific nature and focus on reproductive functions, suggests that humanity is viewed as a biological resource or an object of genetic research. If extraterrestrials have lived among us for a long time, they may have faced the problem of maintaining their own population on Earth, or they are conducting a large-scale genetic experiment aimed at creating a hybrid species. The motives for such research can be diverse, from finding ways to adapt to terrestrial conditions, to studying human biology for any of their own purposes, or trying to save their own endangered species by crossing with humans. These experiments, conducted in secret, can cause unexplained diseases, genetic mutations, or even unusual abilities in some people. Cases of mass disappearances in certain geographical locations, such as the Bermuda Triangle, or in remote areas such as forests and mountains, also raise questions. Some of these disappearances cannot be explained by natural causes, such as weather or accidents. Legends of portals or anomaly zones, where time and space behave in unusual ways, may be echoes of the presence of alien technologies that can open up interdimensional passages that were used for transportation or concealment. If aliens live on Earth, they may have created such portals or windows to other dimensions through which they move, and people may have accidentally or purposefully entered these zones. Ważnym aspektem является также the phenomenon of missing persons in remote and hard-to-reach places, especially in national parks and wild areas, is also an important aspect. Police and rescue workers often encounter unexplained disappearances, where people disappear without a trace, leaving not the slightest clue, in conditions where it would seem their detection should be easy. Some of these cases are so abnormal that they lead to the hypothesis of the intervention of non-human forces. Could these locations be operational areas or gathering areas for aliens, where they could quietly kidnap people, leaving only a secret behind? The challenges to research this phenomenon are enormous. The lack of physical evidence, the psychological nature of many memories, which may be subject to suggestion or trauma, and the stigma associated with reports of abductions make it difficult to study systematically. However, modern methods such as hypnotic regression, with caution, analysis of physical traces, studying behavioral changes, and comparing thousands of independent evidence can reveal striking patterns. The psychological trauma experienced by abductees often indicates that these are not just dreams or fantasies, but deeply personal and real experiences that cannot be easily explained. Thus, the mysterious disappearances and abductions that permeate both ancient myths and modern accounts are one of the most disturbing and convincing evidence that alien civilizations not only visited Earth, but also actively interact with humanity on an individual level, using it as an object of research or for some of their own purposes. The goals are not yet fully understood. If aliens lived among us, they could use humans for their experiments to maintain their genetic lineage or to gather information, treating our planet as a huge laboratory. This phenomenon makes us think about our place in the cosmic hierarchy and how much we really are the masters of our own destiny. Ancient armies and unknown wars, hidden conflicts and space interventions. In addition to peaceful interaction and knowledge transfer, human history is known to be filled with endless wars and conflicts. However, in addition to the wars that are recorded in textbooks, there are myths and legends about wars of the gods, battles with unknown creatures and inexplicable destruction that cannot be attributed to ordinary human collisions. If extraterrestrials really lived among us, then it is quite logical to assume that their presence could be associated not only with creation, but also with conflicts, both among themselves and with humanity, or even with participation in our wars using their advanced technologies. This chapter explores this dark side of the alien presence hypothesis, trying to find evidence of the hidden conflicts and space intervention that shaped Earth's history. The most prominent examples are the Indian texts already mentioned, such as the Mahabharata and Ramayana. They describe large-scale battles between gods and demigods, asuras and devas, using weapons that strikingly resemble modern thermonuclear weapons, glittering chariots, fire arrows that cause the radiance of 1,000 suns, showers of fire, melting mountains, hair and nail loss in survivors, vitrification, glazing of sand. Entire cities were destroyed in the blink of an eye, and the land became uninhabitable. Such descriptions can't just be hyperbole from ancient authors. They point to the actual use of high-energy weapons that surpassed anything that ancient humans could have had. If these wars really took place, then who was involved in them and what kind of weapons were they? These could be conflicts between various alien factions living on Earth or fighting for control of it. Humanity in this scenario was either a pawn in their games or a random victim. If the aliens lived among humans, then their own differences could escalate into wars that would have disastrous consequences for the planet. In addition to Indian texts, there are references to heavenly battles and fireballs raining down from the heavens in the chronicles of various cultures. For example, in ancient China, there are legends about battles between dragons in the sky, which could be metaphors for aerial fights between flying machines. In European medieval chronicles, there are descriptions of flying armies and sky battles that were observed in the sky. In 1561 over Nuremberg and in 1566 over Basel, mass observations of celestial battles were recorded using round and cylindrical objects that fought among themselves and then fell to the ground. If these events were real, then they were dogfights between unknown aircraft, possibly between different alien groups, or between aliens and some advanced Earth civilization. These clashes probably took place over populated areas, leaving witnesses horrified and bewildered. The mysterious destruction of ancient cities, which cannot be explained by earthquakes or conventional wars, can also be a consequence of such conflicts. For example, some ruins in the Middle East and South America show signs of sudden and massive destruction, accompanied by high temperatures and melting of stones. This could have been the result of using the very weapon of the gods described in the Mahabharata. If these cities were destroyed in the course of alien wars, then it shows that their presence was not always benevolent, and humanity could be caught between a rock and a hard place. The concept of demons and evil gods in various mythologies can also be associated with hostile alien entities or their interventions. These creatures, often described as causing suffering, destruction, and chaos, could be representatives of alien civilizations with aggressive intentions that sought to control, enslave, or destroy humanity. The legends of battles between good and evil gods could be a reflection of real conflicts between various alien factions fighting for influence on Earth and over humanity. Modern military reports of unexplained air incursions and cases of UFOs disabling nuclear missiles or interfering with military exercises may also be a continuation of these ancient conflicts or control by extraterrestrials. If extraterrestrials live among us, they may have their own strategic interests that may conflict with those of humans, or they may try to control our development, including our access to disruptive technologies. These interventions can be a kind of show of force or an attempt to prevent the self-destruction of humanity. The challenges in researching this topic are to separate real events from metaphorical descriptions and religious interpretations. Myth wars were often a way to explain natural phenomena or moral dilemmas. However, when we find physical evidence of destruction that is not explained by Earth's technology and parallel descriptions in different cultures, it makes us think about a deeper reality. An interdisciplinary approach is needed, including archaeology, geology, to search for traces of anomalous destruction, mythology, and ufology, to analyze modern military reports. Thus, ancient stories of wars of the gods, battles with unknown creatures, and unexplained destruction, combined with modern military accounts of UFO interventions, provide powerful evidence that alien civilizations not only lived among us, but may also have been involved in hidden conflicts that have had a significant impact on the course of Earth's history. These wars could be between various alien factions, or between aliens and humanity, or even intra-Earth ones, advanced civilizations that have received technology from outside. Understanding this dark side of the alien presence forces us to rethink not only our past, but also our place in a potentially dangerous space environment where not all guests can be benevolent. Cargo cults and modern religions technology perceived as a miracle and continuing influence. Our investigation of the hypothesis that extraterrestrials lived among us inevitably leads to the consideration of a phenomenon that is perhaps one of the most striking and paradoxically modern evidence for such a presence: cargo cults. These unique sociocultural phenomena that emerged in the 20th century on isolated islands of Oceania offer a vivid visual demonstration of how a technologically advanced civilization can be perceived by a primitive society as gods, and their actions as miracles or divine gifts. If this happened in recent history, then why shouldn't something similar have happened in ancient times, forming the foundations of many world religions? This chapter explores the connection between cargo cults, modern religions, and the hypothesis that extraterrestrial beings lived among us, and that their technology and actions formed the basis for faith and worship. Cargo cults originated during and after World War II, when American and Japanese troops appeared on the islands of Melanesia, for example, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea. These soldiers, equipped with incredible technologies for local residents' airplanes, radio stations, trucks, medical equipment, brought cargo with them: food, clothing, tools, and medical supplies. To the isolated tribes who did not understand the principles of modern logistics and production, these skybirds, planes, and white men, soldiers, seemed to have supernatural powers, capable of creating abundance out of nothing. After the departure of the troops, cargo cults became attempts by local residents to reproduce these miracles. They built primitive airstrips, mock-ups of planes made of wood and straw, and staged marches with bamboo rifles to simulate the actions of soldiers, hoping that the spirits of the ancestors, or gods, which the soldiers were to them, would return and bring new cargo. These cults are a powerful illustration of how a technologically superior civilization, not understood by a primitive society, can be deified and its technology turned into an object of worship. This is not just a theory, it is a clear empirical fact. Now let's apply this analogy to ancient times. If extraterrestrials had lived among early humanity, their advanced flying machines, those vimanas in Chariots of Fire, their ability to manipulate matter, building megaliths, their knowledge of medicine and astronomy, and their ability to appear and disappear, teleportation or superluminal speeds, all of this would have been perceived as a mistake. Divine miracles. For our ancestors who lived in the absence of scientific knowledge, technology would have been indistinguishable from magic. The gods who descend from heaven on chariots of fire and bring gifts, knowledge, technology, resources, are actually an ancient analog of the concept of cargo. Just as the Melanesians tried to imitate the actions of American soldiers, the ancients may have tried to replicate what they saw by building temples in honor of the gods, repeating rituals that they thought attracted the gods, or interpreting their teachings in the form of religious dogmas. Many of the foundational texts of world religions can be reinterpreted through this lens. Biblical miracles such as manna from heaven, an inexplicable food that appeared out of nowhere, the parting of the sea, possibly using sound or energy technology, or a pillar of fire and cloud, leading Jews through the desert, which could very well be a UFO, could have been the actions of alien beings who possess the power of the sun. Technologies that seem like miracles, the voice of God, or angels, who bring messages could not be supernatural entities, but extraterrestrials using communication technologies, telepathy, holograms, sound projections, or physically appearing in front of people. These creatures that had the ability to levitate, change their appearance, or even resurrect using advanced medicine would inevitably be deified. Consider also the cult of personality around the prophets and founders of religions. Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, all of them demonstrated abilities that go beyond the ordinary human experience. Healing, foresight, the ability to influence the consciousness of the masses. What if some of them were contactees, hybrids, or even direct representatives of alien civilizations who were given special knowledge and abilities to perform a specific mission on Earth? Their divine or prophetic origin could be a metaphor for their unearthly connection or origin. Perhaps they were the vehicles of higher knowledge, which was gradually introduced into human society. The idea of continuously hiding or encrypting information in religious texts is also becoming more clear. If extraterrestrials transmitted knowledge that was too complex or dangerous for early humanity to fully understand, it could be encrypted in the form of allegories, parables, and rituals to preserve it until humanity reached a certain level of development and could decipher it. These covenants and prophecies could be long-term plans or instruction passed down by extraterrestrials. The challenges in this area are not to offend religious feelings and reduce faith to pure technology. Religion has profound spiritual and ethical functions that go beyond the mere explanation of phenomena. However, the recognition of the possibility that some religious stories have a technological or extraterrestrial basis does not necessarily negate their spiritual significance, but rather expands it by placing humans in a broader cosmic perspective. A delicate but rigorous comparative analysis of religious texts and archaeological data is needed to identify recurring patterns that may indicate extraterrestrial influence. The study of modern communities where cargo cults continue to develop provides valuable insights into the psychology and sociology of this process. Thus, cargo cults serve as a powerful and visual model of how the alien presence could have been perceived by ancient people, forming the foundations of many religions. They show that technology that surpasses the understanding of primitive culture will inevitably be perceived as a miracle and its carriers as gods. If extraterrestrials have lived among us for thousands of years, their actions, their apparatuses, and their knowledge may have been the spark that ignited religious movements around the world. This reinterpretation not only offers a rational explanation for many miracles and divine phenomena, but also makes us think about how deeply extraterrestrial influences have penetrated the very fabric of our worldview and culture. without being noticed under the veil of faith. Hidden knowledge in secret societies. Controlling information and preserving the legacy of extraterrestrial civilizations. If extraterrestrials did indeed live among us in the past and, even more intriguingly, may still be doing so, then a fundamental and penetrating question inevitably arises. Why isn't their presence still a well-known, indisputable fact, officially confirmed by the world's leading scientific institutions and governments? The answer to this question may lie in the existence of hidden knowledge, carefully guarded for thousands of years, in powerful secret societies that not only preserved and passed on information about extraterrestrial presence from generation to generation, but also, just as importantly, actively participated and continue to participate in a large-scale concealment of this information from the general public. These groups, who have exclusive access to so-called sacred or esoteric knowledge, could either be direct descendants of those chosen who had direct contact with aliens in ancient times, or they are conscientious custodians of the most valuable heritage left by extraterrestrial civilizations, consciously controlling and filtering the flow of information in order to form the official historical narrative that can be used in the future. We know ancient mystery cults and esoteric schools that flourished in various civilizations of the world, such as the famous Egyptian mysteries, the mysterious Eleusinian mysteries in ancient Greece, or the strict orders of the Pythagoreans, often required their adherents to take the strictest oath not to disclose their knowledge. This knowledge, passed on by word of mouth only to a select few who had undergone complex trials and initiations, included not only deep cosmological models, complex philosophical teachings, and ethical principles, but also, as some researchers suggest, confidential information about actual contacts with gods or higher beings. If these gods were actually technologically advanced extraterrestrials, then these secret societies could have been created not by chance, but specifically to preserve, protect, and transmit knowledge about the extraterrestrial origin of humanity, about our true roots, or about advanced technologies that were transmitted by aliens. Perhaps this was done in order to prevent the immediate and destructive misuse of potentially dangerous technologies that could lead to the self-destruction of primitive humanity, or in order to maintain a certain controlled level of social and technological development, preventing the complete chaos that could arise from the sudden and complete disclosure of the shocking truth. Over time, as human societies became more complex and ancient cults were replaced by more organized states and centralized religions, this knowledge could be usurped, monopolized, or deliberately hidden by new ruling elites. The idea of controlling information. It is by no means new. Throughout human history, knowledge has always been one of the most powerful tools of power and dominance. If the ruling circles or religious hierarchies of ancient times learned of the true nature of the gods, that they were not omnipotent creators, but technologically advanced beings with limited capabilities, they could make a strategic decision to hide this information from the general public in order to preserve their own power and unbreakable control over society. Full disclosure of the truth could undermine all the foundations of their authority, which was often based on the idea of the divine origin of their power. Thus, these secret societies could become not only passive guardians, but also active censors of true history, forming a narrative that is convenient and beneficial for preserving the existing order. With the advent of the Enlightenment and the subsequent rapid scientific and technological progress, when humanity began to independently discover and understand the principles of physics and technology that the ancient gods may have already possessed, hiding information became even more critical and complex. Secret societies such as the legendary Freemasons, the mysterious Rosicrucians, or the enigmatic Illuminati, which many legends and theories claim possess ancient knowledge and secrets of the universe, may have been the custodians of much of this alien or prehistoric heritage. Their elaborate symbolism, unique architecture of their buildings, and elaborate rituals often contain elements that some researchers believe have a distinct extraterrestrial or prehistoric origin. Perhaps these societies act as a kind of bridge between alien influence and human development, controlling the flow of information and cautiously guiding humanity along a particular path that they believe is safe, most effective, or desirable to achieve certain long-term goals. They may have been intermediaries in the process of preparing humanity for the future revelation of the truth. In the context of modern, numerous, and sometimes very convincing reports of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and direct alien contacts, the hypothesis of the existence of secret societies and purposeful concealment of information becomes even more relevant and takes on sinister outlines. Governments and powerful military structures have been actively and consistently denying the existence of UFOs and extraterrestrials since the mid-20th century, despite constantly appearing eyewitness accounts, information leaks, and even declassified documents that indicate exactly the opposite. This is a deliberate, systematic concealment of information. It can be not just a primitive attempt to avoid mass panic, but part of a much deeper, more complex and strategically thought-out game developed by those who have a complete and comprehensive picture of what is happening. Perhaps there are some international consortia, shadow governments, or even intergovernmental structures that interact directly with one or more alien civilizations and keep this information strictly secret while managing all information leaks and spreading misinformation to confuse and distract the public. If extraterrestrials do live among us, they may have their own reasons for remaining anonymous, as yet unknown to us, and these secret societies or shadow structures may act as their earthly intermediaries, providing the necessary veil of secrecy, acting in their interests. The reasons for such a large-scale and unprecedented cover-up can be, as already mentioned, extremely diverse and deep. One of them is the already mentioned prevention of global panic and social chaos that could arise if humanity suddenly realized that it is not alone in the universe and that its history is not as it is presented. Another reason is to maintain a monopoly on advanced technology that may have been obtained from extraterrestrials. These technologies can be so powerful and game-changing that their full disclosure and uncontrolled distribution can lead to unpredictable geopolitical changes, total self-destruction of humanity, or its enslavement. In addition, maintaining the existing power and control structure is a key motive. Those with exclusive knowledge of extraterrestrials and access to their technology gain unimaginable power that they are unwilling to lose. Keeping this secret allows them to maintain dominant control over global processes. Moreover, the extraterrestrials' own interests may play a crucial role. They may insist on maintaining secrecy for their own reasons, whether it is a non-interference directive, a desire to continue their research without interference, or humanity's unwillingness to engage in full-scale contact. Finally, there is the hypothesis of a long-term plan, according to which disclosure of information should occur at a certain pre-planned moment when humanity reaches a certain level of maturity, ethical development, or technological readiness. The challenges facing research in this area are enormous and involve serious difficulties due to the lack of publicly available, verifiable evidence and the inevitable propensity for widespread conspiracy theories. Information about secret societies and cover-ups is often based on rumors, leaks from alleged insiders, and indirect evidence, which makes it difficult to verify. However, a complete rejection of these theories, as representatives of official science often do, would be extremely naive and unscientific. It is important to use a strictly critical approach, carefully check each source of information, look for independent confirmation in different areas of knowledge, and be prepared for the fact that the truth may be much more complex, layered, and shocking than it seems at first glance. An analysis of declassified government documents, though sparse but still containing references to unidentified aerial phenomena, as well as comparing the statements of alleged insiders, which require the strictest verification, with well-known facts, can help to uncover these deeply hidden secrets. Thus, the existence of hidden knowledge and the influence of secret societies throughout human history are powerful, if controversial, evidence that alien civilizations not only lived among us in the deep past, but may still be active on Earth. And their anonymity is supported by a complex, comprehensive, and multi-level system. Hiding information. This system is supposedly run by powerful Earth elites who have either entered into direct agreements with extraterrestrials or actively use their technology and knowledge to their advantage. Unraveling this worldwide mystery will not only radically change our understanding of world politics, power structure, and control over humanity, but it will also force us to think deeply about who really controls our planet, its resources, and its future. If this bold hypothesis is correct, then we live in a world where the most fundamental and vital truth is carefully hidden from the vast majority of the population. And the struggle to uncover it is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, battles for freedom of information in human history. This makes our current era not just a time of rapid technological progress, but also a time when humanity may be approaching a crucial tipping point in its awareness of its true place in the universe and its real history. Archaeoacoustics and energy resonances of ancient structures, sound technologies of extraterrestrial civilizations. After a comprehensive analysis of material evidence, such as colossal megalithic structures whose construction technology is still a mystery, and anachronistic artifacts known as ooparts, which by their age and complexity challenge traditional ideas about human history, as well as after an in-depth consideration of the mythological and socio-cultural aspects of the alleged alien presence, we turn to another, a less obvious but potentially revolutionary area of research: archaeoacoustics and the study of energy resonances of ancient structures. This cutting-edge field of science focuses on a thorough study of the unique acoustic properties of ancient structures, which, as more and more data shows, were designed and built in such a way as not only to reflect sound, but also to purposefully generate, focus, and amplify specific sound frequencies. If extraterrestrials really lived among us in the distant past and possessed the level of advanced technology that we attribute to them to explain their intervention, then these technologies certainly included not only the masterly manipulation of matter and energy that is necessary to move giant stones or create complex mechanisms, but also the deepest, perhaps even the most complex, and even a complete understanding of sound and its many-sided, often unobvious impact on the physical world, as well as on human consciousness. This raises a bold and intriguing question. What if many ancient temples, mysterious underground labyrinths, sacred caves, observatories, and majestic pyramids were built not only to perform obvious visual, ritual, astronomical, or funerary functions, but also for a hidden, much more complex purpose, generating or harnessing specific sound frequencies that can have a variety of effects and a powerful influence? These effects could range from directly affecting the properties of matter, allowing it to be manipulated, to the ability to heal physical ailments, change the state of human consciousness, put into a deep trance, or even serve as a sophisticated means of interspecies or interstellar communication. This hypothesis suggests that alien civilizations may have possessed and made extensive use of these advanced sound technologies, which to ancient man, without the scientific apparatus to explain them, seemed like unimaginable magic, a manifestation of divine power, or the direct intervention of omnipotent gods demonstrating their superior power and knowledge. Modern, though still developing and relatively young, research in the field of archaeoacoustics has already revealed truly striking and inexplicable acoustic properties in many ancient structures scattered around the world, from the megaliths of Western Europe to the grandiose buildings of Central and South America. For example, in the famous Newgrange Mound in Ireland, a grand megalithic structure that dates back to about 3200 BC and is significantly older than the Egyptian pyramids, its interior chambers, including the central burial chamber, have been found to have a unique and pronounced acoustic resonance. Under certain conditions, especially when making low-pitched sounds, these cameras begin to resonate strongly at a frequency of about 110 Hz, a very low-frequency sound that is barely discernible to the human ear, but is felt throughout the body as a deep vibration. What is particularly interesting and scientifically significant is that recent studies using modern neuroimaging techniques have shown that this frequency, 110 Hz, causes increased specific activity in the right temporal lobe of the human brain, an area that is closely associated with the occurrence of deep meditative states, mystical and even out-of-body sensations, as well as with the experience of altered states of consciousness. Similar resonant frequencies, which have a powerful influence on the state of consciousness, have been found in other European cromlechs, mysterious dolmens, and ancient burial chambers, which indicates their deliberate, rather than accidental, acoustic design. In the majestic pyramids of Giza, especially the Great Pyramid of Cheops, there are also internal chambers and passages that have truly unique acoustic properties. For example, in the Tsar's chamber, which is completely paved with granite, sounds of certain frequencies cause a powerful, enveloping hum and palpable vibration, which cannot be just a random architectural effect, but is most likely the purposeful result of an incredibly complex engineering and acoustic design that exceeds all the possibilities of that time known to us. These striking acoustic phenomena, observed in structures separated by thousands of kilometers of geographical space and thousands of years of history, cannot be just a series of random coincidences or the result of primitive construction. If the ancient builders, according to our ideas, did not have sophisticated measuring devices, accurate acoustic analyzers, detailed knowledge of brain physiology, and an understanding of psychoacoustics to accurately calculate and create such specific, purposeful acoustic properties, then a natural and deep question arises. How did they, without visible technologies, achieve such incredible accuracy and such purposeful effects? A hypothesis worthy of the most serious and unbiased consideration is that the extraterrestrials who may have lived among these ancient peoples, actively interacted with them, or even directly guided them, possessed not just a superficial, but a profound, masterful knowledge of acoustics, resonance physics, and their comprehensive influence on biological processes, systems, and properties of matter. They could use sound not only to change the state of consciousness of the people entering these sacred structures, but also for much more practical and large-scale purposes, which could be an integral part of their own technology or their large-scale activities on Earth. These potential goals include, but are not limited to, the following aspects that radically change our understanding of antiquity. First, there is stone manipulation and anti-gravity. One of the most intriguing and daring theories in the context of megalithic construction suggests that ancient builders may have used sonic levitation or intense sound vibration to move and process giant, massive stone blocks that weigh hundreds or even thousands of tons. If certain powerful sound frequencies can change the physical properties of materials, temporarily reducing their density or even completely neutralize the force of gravity at the local level, then this would provide a convincing and elegant explanation for how these colossal megaliths were moved over vast distances through complex landscapes and raised to dizzying heights without visible means and a huge amount of labor. Forces, ancient texts, and myths around the world, including Eastern and Western traditions, sometimes refer to singing stones, music that moved mountains, or sounding stones, which may have been not just a poetic metaphor, but a highly distorted, but nevertheless literal description of the use of advanced sound technologies for construction purposes. In this context, the magic, the Rishumashak of the ancient builders would not be mysticism, but an advanced application of physical principles that we are just beginning to discover and understand in modern physics. Second, power stations and resonators. Perhaps some of these ancient structures were designed not only to create acoustic effects, but also for a much more complex and vital function, generating or powerfully concentrating other, more powerful forms of energy through these very sound resonances. If sound can be effectively converted into electricity, for example, through the piezoelectric effect that is manifested in quartz crystals, widely used in megalithic buildings, or other forms of energy that are still unknown to us, then these ancient buildings could act as a kind of giant energy reactors, resonators, or energy transformers. This stored or generated energy could provide power for other, more sophisticated alien technologies, such as their flying vehicles, communication devices, or even be used for large-scale terraforming of the planet. For example, the famous Singing Rock in Caucasia, Russia, or the numerous singing rocks in various parts of the world that emit deep resonant sounds when struck, may not just be natural anomalies, but deliberately modified objects integrated into a larger system for certain sound or energy purposes left by alien engineers. Third, long-range communication. Low-frequency sounds, which have the unique ability to pass through solid materials such as earth and water over very long distances with minimal loss of energy and information, could be used for underground or even underwater communication between alien bases that are supposed to have been hidden from human beings. The eye is deep underground or underwater. It is possible that some of these massive structures, such as mounds or underground temples, served as giant antennas or resonators for the exchange of information between the alien entities that lived in these hidden shelters, keeping in touch with their brethren on other bases or even off-planet. Ancient legends of talking stones, voices from the ground, or places of power, where people experienced unusual sensations or heard strange, inexplicable sounds, may have been points where such communications were particularly strong or where they became audible to a select few who were particularly sensitive or in a particular state of consciousness. Fourth, healing and changing states of consciousness. Many ancient temples, sacred caves, and sacred sites around the world have been used for complex initiation rituals, rites of healing for physical and mental ailments, or to achieve altered, trance-like states of consciousness that promote contact with spirits or gods. If these structures were deliberately designed to generate specific, finely tuned sound frequencies, then these frequencies could have a direct, powerful effect on the human brain, stimulating certain areas of it, causing controlled hallucinations, prophetic visions, or deep meditative states that promote self-knowledge and spiritual development. Perhaps the aliens use these powerful acoustic effects to control or subtly manipulate the minds of ancient people, or to teach them, facilitating the transfer of complex concepts and knowledge that could not be learned in the usual way due to the primitiveness of language or thinking. Shamanic practices involving the intensive use of rhythms, chanting, and repetitive sounds to enter a trance may have been adapted from earlier, technologically based sound effects that later became part of the ritual. Fifth, geodetic markers or navigational beacons. The location of some megalithic complexes around the world, which often form geometrically regular patterns or are carefully aligned with astronomical events, may be associated with more extensive acoustic or energy networks covering the entire planet. If the aliens created a kind of global network of bases and energy points on Earth, then these structures could be beacons or nodes in this complex network, using sound or energy resonance for their own navigation or communication purposes that are beyond human comprehension. For example, the theory of the existence of ley lines, which are supposed to connect ancient places of power around the world, can be interpreted not just as a mystical representation, but as the remnants of an ancient energy or communication network created using these advanced sound principles available only to a highly developed civilization. The challenges facing research in this area are enormous, but the potential for scientific and historical discoveries is no less great. Archaeoacoustics, this is a relatively young and interdisciplinary science, and many of its conclusions at this stage are rather hypothetical. It is extremely difficult to prove the intentional nature of acoustic effects without direct, unambiguous indications in ancient texts or without finding appropriate technological tools. However, ongoing research using state-of-the-art technologies, such as high-precision laser vibrometers to measure minute vibrations, computer-generated acoustic simulations to reproduce ancient sound environments, and neuroimaging, such as fMRI, to study the effects of specific sounds on the human brain may provide increasingly compelling evidence. The discovery of ancient instruments capable of generating, focusing, or measuring these complex frequencies would be a truly groundbreaking discovery that could confirm these bold hypotheses. Thus, archaeoacoustics and the study of energy resonances of ancient structures open up a completely new and exciting perspective on the true nature and diverse purposes of megalithic structures and other anomalous structures, such as underground complexes and ceremonial centers. They are powerful, if still indecisive, evidence that alien civilizations not only lived among us, but also, just as importantly, possess the deepest, most masterful knowledge of sound technology, which they used for a wide range of purposes. From the amazing manipulation of matter that allows you to create monumental structures and energy generation to the most complex forms of communication and even direct impact on human consciousness and biology. These sounding stones, singing caves, and resonating temples may have been not just objects of worship or places of primitive rituals, but complex multifunctional machines, engineering structures built or at least designed by extraterrestrials whose secrets we, modern humanity, are just beginning to rediscover and realize. Decoding ancient codes step by step, they are silent but eloquent reminders of the highly advanced knowledge and technology that was available in ancient times, perhaps thanks to those who came from distant stars and left their sound heritage awaiting our full understanding. Conspiracy theories and the deep state attempts to hide the alien truth in the modern era. We have come to the final but no less important and perhaps most relevant aspect of our comprehensive study, the phenomenon of conspiracy theories and the concept of the deep state, which supposedly play a key and central role in concealing the true nature of the alien presence on Earth in the modern era. If our basic hypothesis is correct, that extraterrestrials did indeed live among us in the deep past and, even more strikingly, may still be doing so, then their surprising anonymity and the lack of publicly available, irrefutable evidence supported by all official sources cannot be the result of mere chance, their unwillingness, or their insignificance. Sessions. On the contrary, it is very likely that their presence is supported by a complex, multi-layered, and extremely effective system of information control, which is carried out by the most influential Earth forces and organizations. This chapter explores in detail the mechanisms behind this massive cover-up, the alleged motives of those behind it, and the possible role of clandestine organizations and powerful elites in controlling public perception of the UFO phenomenon and the presence of extraterrestrials. Since the mid-20th century, especially after the landmark, albeit highly controversial, Roswell incident in 1947, when according to numerous witnesses, military and researchers, an alien spacecraft crashed in the New Mexico desert, and its wreckage, as well as the bodies of non-human beings, were extracted and carefully classified by the U.S. military governments around the world, and especially the United States of America, have begun to pursue an extremely active and consistent policy of denying the existence of UFOs and extraterrestrial civilizations. This policy has given rise to countless conspiracy theories that claim that behind the scenes of official power, there is a kind of deep or shadow elite, often called the deep state, within government structures, influential corporations, and the military-industrial complex, which not only has complete exhaustive knowledge about extraterrestrials, it is also actively, purposefully, and extremely effective in hiding this information from the general public. These theories, despite their sometimes fantastic and sometimes even paranoid nature, suggest that the official denial of the UFO phenomenon, the systematic ridicule of witnesses, and the explanation of the inexplicable through pseudoscientific or trivial arguments are just a carefully planned and coordinated campaign of disinformation and manipulation of public opinion designed to preserve the current status of the UFO phenomenon. Status quo and monopoly of power. This deep elite, which is sometimes described as an informal but extremely powerful and interconnected network, presumably includes the highest-ranking military officials, the heads of key intelligence services, such as the CIA, NSA, MI6, influential representatives of the largest multinational corporations of the military-industrial complex and defense industry, as well as elected officials, scientists from top-secret programs working outside of conventional scientific institutions. It is claimed that these individuals have direct and exclusive access to secret projects related to the research of alien technologies. They may be involved in large-scale reverse engineering programs of crashed or possibly intentionally provided UFOs, trying to replicate their incredible propulsion systems, such as anti-gravity or electromagnetic, advanced energy systems, such as cold fusion or vacuum power, communication techniques, and other aspects of extraterrestrial technology that are significantly ahead of Earth developments. Potential advances in this area could explain some of the inexplicable and sometimes startling leaps in the development of Earth's military technology and aviation, which seem too advanced for normal, linear evolution and are not the result of Earth's genius, but of external influence. If extraterrestrials really do live among us, then this secret group may have direct and permanent contact with them, concluding various agreements, exchanging technologies, resources, biological samples, or even collaborating on joint projects that are still unknown to humanity, which can have far-reaching consequences. The motives for such a large-scale and unprecedented cover-up can be extremely multifaceted, complex, and involve both terrestrial and possibly extraterrestrial interests. First, one of the main reasons is often cited as preventing global panic and social chaos. The generally accepted opinion among the supporters of the cover-up is that sudden, complete, and unprepared disclosure of the truth, warning of an extraterrestrial presence, can lead to unpredictable and catastrophic consequences for all of humanity. This can trigger mass panic among the population, the complete collapse of world religions, since many of them are based on anthropocentric ideas about man as the only intelligent creation, the collapse of global economic systems based on established principles, and the complete collapse of public morality and order, which can lead to anarchy. Controlling this sensitive information allows, in their view, gradually preparing the population for this truth, dosing information, managing its delivery through carefully selected channels, and stretching the process of awareness for decades or even centuries. The second is to maintain a monopoly on advanced technology. Alien technology, if acquired and successfully mastered, represents an unprecedented military, economic, and technological advantage for the group that possesses it. Hiding information about their existence allows the deep state to maintain this monopoly, preventing it from spreading to hostile states or competing multinational corporations that could use these technologies to harm the existing world order or for their own expansion. This creates an invisible arms race on a whole new level. Third, it is maintaining the existing power and control structure. Those with knowledge of extraterrestrials and direct access to their technology gain unimaginable power and influence beyond any traditional form of political or economic control. Keeping this secret in the hands of a narrow, carefully selected elite allows them to maintain dominant control over global political, economic, and social processes, ruling the world from the shadows without any visible influence on democratic institutions. Fourth, the aliens' own interests cannot be ruled out. Perhaps alien civilizations themselves, living among us or periodically visiting Earth, insist on maintaining their anonymity. They may have their own reasons, which are still completely unknown to us, for not interfering in human affairs. The so-called non-interference directive, which is often found in science fiction but has a logical basis, or for gradual, strictly controlled disclosure of information. In this scenario, the deep state can act as their earthly intermediary, providing the necessary veil of secrecy and following their instructions. Fifth, these are potential risks to human security. Full and uncontrolled disclosure of information about extraterrestrial civilizations can lead to uncontrolled contacts with potentially hostile alien forces or provoke interspecies conflicts for which humanity is not yet ready, either technologically or morally. There is speculation that the aliens may be divided into factions with different intentions, and the deep state is trying to maneuver between them, protecting the Earth. The mechanisms of hiding this information are extremely diverse, complex, and cover almost all spheres of public consciousness and public administration. These include targeted disinformation and propaganda, for example, ridiculing and discrediting UFO witnesses, creating fake, easily refutable stories to undermine the credibility of the topic, systematic manipulation of the mainstream media through direct pressure, financial leverage, censorship, or the introduction of favorable narratives, total secrecy of documents, especially military reports, etc., intelligence agencies and air traffic controllers regarding unexplained aerial phenomena and contacts, threats, intimidation, and even, according to some, physical elimination insiders, whistleblowers, and independent researchers who attempt to shed light on the subject, as well as control over the academic and scientific environment that prevents serious interdisciplinary scientific research on the UFO phenomenon and any public statements that could undermine the official position. All this creates an atmosphere of fear, self-censorship, apathy, and skepticism in society, which is extremely effective in maintaining secrecy. However, it is worth noting that in recent years, there have been unprecedented signs that the veil of secrecy is gradually beginning to open. The Pentagon's official recognition of the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, the publication of some videos taken by military pilots, the creation of specialized government agencies such as the Office for the Resolution of Anomalies in All Areas, ARO, as well as the testimony of former military and intelligence officials under oath in Congress. All this points to a fundamental, although not a slow shift in official policy and rhetoric. Perhaps this is because control over information is becoming increasingly complex and unstable in the era of the global internet, decentralized media, and citizen journalism, or because the aliens themselves have decided to change their strategy for interacting with humanity, or because the deep state has consciously decided to gradually prepare humanity for the full disclosure of this truth. By feeding information in a dosed manner to avoid shock, the challenges facing the study of conspiracy theories and the concept of the deep state are enormous and require an extremely careful, critical, and unbiased approach. It is extremely important to be able to filter out reliable information, supported by facts and independent evidence, from pure fantasy, paranoia, misinformation, and manipulation. Not all conspiracy theories have a real basis, and many of them can be used to distract attention, discredit the topic, or mask other interests. However, a complete rejection of their consideration, as representatives of official science and the media often do, would be extremely naive and in fact unscientific. It is important to use a strict critical method, carefully check each source of information, look for independent confirmation in different areas of knowledge, from archaeology to physics, and be prepared for the fact that the truth may be much more complex, layered, and shocking than it seems at first glance, exceeding the wildest assumptions. An analysis of declassified government documents, though sparse, but still containing indisputable references to unidentified aerial phenomena and contacts, as well as comparing the statements of alleged insiders, which require the strictest verification of authenticity, with well-known facts and scientific data, can help to uncover these deeply hidden secrets. Thus, conspiracy theories and the concept of the deep state, they are an integral and perhaps central part of our understanding of the modern UFO phenomenon and alien presence. They indicate that alien civilizations not only lived among us in the distant past, but may still be active on Earth, and their anonymity is supported by a complex, comprehensive, and multi-level system of information concealment. This system is supposedly run by powerful Earth elites who have either entered into direct agreements with extraterrestrials or actively use their technology and knowledge to their advantage. Unraveling this worldwide mystery will not only radically change our understanding of world politics, power structure, and control over humanity, but it will also force us to think deeply about who really controls our planet, its resources, and its future. If this bold hypothesis is correct, then we live in a world where the most fundamental and vital truth is carefully hidden from the vast majority of the population, and the struggle to uncover it is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, battles for freedom of information in human history. This makes our current era not just a time of rapid technological progress, but also a time when humanity may be approaching a crucial tipping point in its awareness of its true place in the universe and its real history, which may be far more complex and exciting than we ever imagined. Rethinking Human History and the Cosmic Place of Humanity, a deep dive into the multidimensionality of interaction with extraterrestrial civilizations. Our multifaceted journey through the depths of human history, world mythology, anomalous archaeology, and even modern sociocultural phenomena has led us to a single, albeit hypothetical, but strikingly consistent and internally consistent conclusion. The idea that alien civilizations did not just visit Earth fleetingly, but actively and continuously lived among us for the entire foreseeable human history. It deserves much more serious, comprehensive, and unbiased consideration than is customary in the framework of established academic orthodoxy. We began our research with a fundamental foundation and analysis of ancient texts that seemed to describe with remarkable accuracy something that went beyond the limits of human capabilities at that time. Sumerian clay tablets, Egyptian hieroglyphs, Indian Vedas, and biblical tales all mention gods descending from the heavens in chariots of fire or flying ships, accompanied by fire, thunder, and radiance, descriptions strikingly reminiscent of modern reports of sightings of unidentified flying objects, UFOs. These ancient testimonies, being not just metaphors but literal descriptions of what was seen, provide the first powerful argument in favor of extraterrestrial intervention. We then delved into the material evidence analysis, focusing on the mystery of megalithic structures such as the Grand Pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, Baalbek, and many others around the world. These monumental structures, consisting of blocks weighing hundreds and thousands of tons, perfectly fitted to each other, despite the lack of modern tools, as well as their exact astronomical orientation, raised a natural question. How could primitive civilizations, without complex mechanisms and knowledge, build such structures? The hypothesis of the intervention of a more advanced, external intelligence capable of manipulating gravity, using advanced cutting or sound technologies, becomes here not just an assumption, but a necessary explanatory principle. Further exploration of the world of unexplained artifacts known as UPARTs, out-of-place artifacts, found in geological layers millions or even billions of years old, from a metal cube in a coal seam to ancient springs and complex mechanisms, has forced us to radically rethink the very concept of linear human history. If the hammer from London is really 100 million years old, and the mysterious balls from Klerksdorp are 2.8 billion years old, then this strongly indicates that intelligent beings and highly developed technologies existed on Earth long before the appearance of Homo sapiens. Who were these antediluvian civilizations? Were they the forerunners of humanity, or were they extraterrestrials who visited or even colonized Earth in distant geological epochs, leaving behind these anomalous but persistent traces of their presence? Our study also looked at the genetic abnormalities and unique features of the human species that distinguish us from other primates. We looked at an unexplained leap in human brain development that occurred relatively quickly by evolutionary standards, as well as paradoxical diseases that have no analogs in nature, and strange genetic mutations that indicate unnatural interference. All of this has been analyzed as potential evidence of genetic interference or a direct hybridization process, suggesting that aliens may have modified humans for their own purposes, or that we ourselves, Homo sapiens, are the result of ancient alien genetic experiments conducted by our primate ancestors. Psychological aspects, including Carl Jung's concept of the collective unconscious, recurring archetypes, and dreams of extraterrestrial contacts that occur in cultures around the world, indicate a deep-rooted collective memory of such contacts that may have been passed down from generation to generation through genetic or epigenetic memory. Mysterious disappearances and abductions that permeate both ancient myths and folklore, as well as modern accounts of the phenomenon of alien abductions, only strengthen the hypothesis that humanity is considered by these extraterrestrial entities not only as an observable object, but also as a resource for research, experiments, or even as biological material. Moreover, ancient wars vividly described in epic poems and sacred texts, such as the Mahabharata, using weapons of mass destruction that could only be technological, not magical or mythical, hint at hidden conflicts and space interventions where various alien factions may have fought for influence on Earth or for survival. Its resources, leaving behind ruins and radiation traces. The phenomenon of cargo cults that emerged on the isolated islands of Oceania in the 20th century provided a powerful, visual, and empirically confirmed analogy to how technologically advanced beings, in this case Allied soldiers, can be perceived by primitive society as gods and their actions as miracles or divine gifts, cargo, and their technologies as objects of worship, forming the foundations of primitive religions. This live demonstration allows us to rethink the origins of many of the world's religious beliefs and their miracles through the lens of technology perceived as divine intervention. If this happened very recently, then why shouldn't something similar have happened in ancient times, forming the foundations of the religions that we know today? Finally, we examine the critical role of hidden knowledge, secret societies, and the concept of the deep state in maintaining the veil of secrecy surrounding the alien presence in the modern era. Assuming that this secret is carefully guarded by powerful forces with complex motivations, whether to prevent panic, maintain a monopoly on technology, or execute certain alien directives. Additionally, the study of archaeoacoustics, the discovery of ancient structures and energy resonances, has suggested the intriguing idea that ancient megaliths may have been more than just temples or tombs, but complex machines, engineering complexes that use sound technology for various purposes, from levitating giant stones to influencing human consciousness, which again and again indicates the presence of highly developed knowledge and technologies, possibly even the use of artificial intelligence, extraterrestrial origin, which were available in ancient times. Thus, if you put all these seemingly disparate pieces of data, from ancient myths and artifacts to genetic anomalies and modern conspiracy theories, together, a holistic, albeit unorthodox but internally consistent picture emerges. Human history, perhaps, is not a purely earthly, self-sufficient, linear development, but rather a complex one. A complex, multidimensional tapestry closely intertwined with a long-term and multifaceted alien presence. Extraterrestrials may have been our ancient guides and civilizers, passing on knowledge about agriculture, astronomy, construction, and metallurgy, which explains the sudden and inexplicable leaps in the development of the first civilizations. They could be genetic engineers who were actively involved in shaping the human species itself, directing its evolution in a certain direction, or creating hybrids for their own purposes. They may have been constant observers of our development, the evolution of our culture and technology, or even active participants in hidden conflicts in interplanetary wars, the consequences of which may be reflected in our myths and geological anomalies. Their advanced technologies, incomprehensible to primitive humanity and perceived as a miracle or magic, could become the basis for the formation of many religious beliefs and cults. And their anonymity and invisibility in the modern era is supported by powerful global information hiding mechanisms controlled by secret structures. Accepting this bold but logical hypothesis that extraterrestrials have lived among us and actively interacted with us throughout history has fundamental and far-reaching implications for our understanding of ourselves, our origins, and our true place in the universe. First, it calls into question our established anthropocentric view of the world, suggesting that humanity may not be the only or even the first intelligent life form to evolve on Earth, and that our civilization may not have been the first, but only one in a series. Second, it radically reinterprets our entire history, transforming it from a simple, linear sequence of events into a complex, possibly controlled or externally directed saga of interactions between different species and civilizations. Third, it opens up completely new, sometimes frightening, but also inspiring prospects for our future. If contact with extraterrestrials has already taken place for a long time and continues to occur in a hidden form, then the key question is no longer, when will they come, or do they exist? But who are they really? What are their true goals for humanity? And what do they plan to do next? Our research does not claim to be definitive and irrefutable, but it calls for an open, interdisciplinary, critical, and unbiased approach to the study of our past and present. It underscores the urgent need to revisit outdated paradigms and dogmas, to better analyze unexplained anomalies that do not fit into the conventional framework, and to recognize the possibility that the most fantastic and improbable myths and legends may contain not just fiction, but real grains of historical truth encoded through the prism of an ancient worldview. Perhaps the key to understanding our own future lies precisely in uncovering the carefully hidden secrets of our past, which lurk in ancient ruins, in the depths of the oceans, in forgotten texts, and in the most secret corners of humanity's collective memory. The time has come for all of humanity to ask the most difficult and uncomfortable questions, to be prepared for the most unexpected and shocking answers. Because if aliens really lived among us, influencing our history and development, then our future is most likely already predetermined by them, or at least is under their close supervision and perhaps under a subtle but constant influence. This hypothesis requires not denial, but bold and deep scientific research that can change our place in the universe forever.